Entitled realtor? Why, yes she is. A few winters ago, my neighbours moved rather suddenly before they sold their house. This left their house empty, and they worried about it looking empty, so they asked if I could go over once in a while and turn on lights, maybe shovel the walk if we got snow. You know, make the house look lived in. I had no problem doing this, as they'd been great neighbours, and I was sad to see them go. That same winter, I had a toddler, a baby, and I was pretty decently pregnant, around 7 months along. My husband also worked a lot out of town, so about 2 weeks out of the month, I was on my own with my brood. So my ex-neighbour must have let their realtor know that I was helping by turning lights on and off and shoveling the front walk if it needed it. The realtor showed up, I'll call her Ronnie, and introduces herself and thanks me for my help. Great. She must have also gotten my number from my ex-neighbour, because soon she started texting me requests. This ranged from dusting the house, turning on certain lights, etc. ahead of showings. I went over the first time she asked, and I did swiff a bit and turn on the requested lights. She texted me later saying she was disappointed at how dusty the house was. I ignored that, as I didn't give a hot dang what she thought. Then the request became an everyday thing. She basically wanted me to set the house up every time she had a showing. I had my kids and was very pregnant with a high-risk pregnancy. I wasn't on bed rest or anything, but I had to be careful. I ignored all those requests. The kicker came when we got heavy snow. I'm talking a good 1.5 feet of heavy, wet snow. Heart attack snow. Ronnie the realtor texts me at 8 PM that she will need the driveway cleared by the next morning. The absolute audacity was audacious. I responded to that one asking if she was out of her mind. I'm 7 months pregnant. That's not happening. She then asked if my husband could do it. I said he was out of town. She said, quote, "Well, you'll have to figure something out." Excuse me, madam? I sent her laughing face emojis and went back to what I was doing. Well, lo and behold, Ronnie the realtor was at my door the next morning, knocking like she was the police, full on fist banging. I opened the door in my pajamas while using my baby bump to hold up my baby as he nursed. Irish twins are fun, and I just stared at her. She actually had the nerve to say, "I thought I told you the driveway needed to be cleared. I have a showing in a half hour." I told her to lose my number and shut the door in her face. I then called my ex-neighbour and told her she'd better put a leash on her pet realtor because I was about done with her. She was horrified and promised me she'd take care of it, which she must have done because I didn't hear from Ronnie the realtor again. I did, however, enjoy watching her high-stepping it through all that snow. Oh my goodness me. Like, the fact that throughout all of this, I imagine she knew who you were. Maybe she didn't actually. The funniest thing about this story is that even throughout all of this, we can maybe give Ronnie the benefit of the doubt that she didn't realize you were pregnant and had a toddler and were home alone. But then that all ends when she looks at you in the face with the door open at OP's home, and she is heavily pregnant, has her baby there, and it's like snowing loads. I mean, they then ask at that point, I thought this was meant to be gone. It's ridiculous, but quite funny to be honest. Again though, with this one, I feel like I would have stopped this a lot earlier and said to my ex-neighbour, just so you know, I'm being asked to do pretty ridiculous things here. Like even dusting the house. You'd be like, well, no, I'm not doing that because that should be the job of the realtor or the ex-neighbour. Like, I get it. It's a nice thing to make your house look lived in. That is important as well. You would do that for someone's neighbour, and you would dust, you know, once in a while if they were out for a long time and you really had to do that. Although you'd still sort of hope that they would employ a cleaner or something to do that. Anyway, this is just too far when you're like trying to help them sell the house, which is the realtor's job. Like, they should be doing that. They should be employing the realtor to then do that, or they should be, you know, employing a cleaner themselves to help sell the house. But yeah, again, like, it shouldn't have got to that point, but it was very funny. A woman jumped into my car, and I'm an idiot, but this had a funny ending. I was at a stop sign around lunchtime when a woman on the corner came running over to the passenger side of my car, screeching about needing to get home. I was driving a convertible with the top down. She didn't wait for an answer. She just swung her leg over the door and plopped herself into the passenger seat, saying she'd give me $5 for gas. She told me she lived in a nearby low-income public housing project. I knew where it was, about 1.5 miles away. She was pretty tweaky, but somehow seemed fairly harmless. She never even glanced at me. She didn't seem to be plotting something. She never said another word. So here's the part where you can all give me trash. Please don't downvote me for my stupidity. I figured it was easier to just go 1.5 miles out of my way than to deal with the drama of trying to get her out of my car. My backup plan for carjackings is to just drive into the first telephone pole I see or rear end the first police car I spot. Airbags for the win. Better to deal with the aftermath of that than have your body dumped into an alley. I suppose that is actually fair enough. So, I get to the housing project. It was broad daylight, and I was right in front of the main entrance with people around, so I didn't feel in any danger. She hopped out and ran off. I wouldn't have taken the $5 even if she'd offered, which she didn't, but mostly I was annoyed that she left the passenger door open as far as it could go. I got out to go around to close it when an older guy in a silver pickup pulls up. He put his passenger window down and asked did I know that woman and was I okay? I replied, I've got no idea who she is, but yeah, I'm fine. He explained that he'd been coming down the street behind me when he saw that woman jump into my car. He followed me to see if anything sketchy was going to go down. I was pretty stunned by the thoughtfulness and told him that, wow, thanks, that was a pretty awesome thing to do. He said, I'd have punched that female dog right out of my truck. He then pointed a finger at my face and sternly lectured me like I was one of his kids. Don't do that again. Okay, yes sir. Of course, he was absolutely correct. And if it ever happens again, let's hope not, I might just take his advice on the punching part. But just try to imagine the entitlement of jumping into a stranger's car because you need a ride. Honestly, if she'd picked the wrong vehicle, it could have turned out a lot worse for her. Wow, what a story to kick off this episode. The audacity of this woman to be like, you know what, I'm in your car now, give me a ride. And you know what, I kind of rate that you just did it, because I kind of agree with you. Who knows what might have happened if you didn't? Yeah, obviously it's still very risky, and that man is right, giving someone a lift to their house, a complete stranger. I don't know about the particular area or establishment that they live in. I'm not going to comment on that. The fact that it's a low-income public housing project doesn't really mean anything to me. But, I mean, the fact is, what if you'd said no and they just shot you in the head? What's more likely, actually, genuinely, and I want you to get in the comments down below on this one, or the Q&A section if you're on Spotify. What is actually more dangerous? Giving someone a lift in the middle of the day, 1.5 miles around the corner, or starting a fight with them while they're in your own car and forcing them to get out, bearing in mind that this is a woman who is doing this. It's not like you're a man and you are quite clearly a bigger person than the woman that's got in your car. Not that that necessarily matters that much, but it is important. Yeah, get in the comments. Interested to hear your thoughts. Let's move on. Now for our second story. Entitled guest wants to open my collector doll for her kid. I moved out of my parents' house last year. My parents have kept my childhood bedroom as it is, with all of my old toys, belongings, clothes, etc., because I go home to visit most weekends and help around the house. This includes some collector edition Barbies and dolls that my dad bought for me when I was younger. I keep them in their boxes, stored on a high shelf. There's about 10 dolls, some of which are collector's items now because of their age and condition. I've not thought about selling them because I just like keeping things that my dad bought for me. I guess I have attachment to them because he worked in the US while we lived in Canada without him, and toys were given when he visited us. This past weekend, I was visiting my mum and she brought some of her friends over. One particularly entitled friend, Jane, brought her granddaughter, a 5-year-old. I told my mum not to let the child up in my room after a bad experience with kids taking my belongings and breaking them. I stayed downstairs and worked in a room. Eventually, I heard Jane taking her granddaughter upstairs. I then heard them opening doors and talking. I didn't go upstairs until I heard her say something about dolls. I went upstairs and I asked them both to leave my room. But Jane was already in my closet at this point and pointing at my dolls. Of course, they pointed at the boxes of Barbies. She pulled one off, showed it to her granddaughter, and told me she wanted to play with it. When I told her, no, it's in the box for a reason, she seemed irritated at me and handed the box back to me. She left my room and the child started crying, saying she wanted to play with dolls. I went through my things and I found some of the dolls that I'd opened as a kid and played with, and I offered them to her downstairs. But no, she kept insisting on the princess doll. They didn't go back upstairs, but it left me a little anxious now about my room. My mum's telling me to put a lock on my door because Jane visits often and tends to wander around, but I'm baffled that she'd go into someone's house and think it's okay to touch their stuff. Yeah, you don't need a lock on your door. You need your mum either not to invite Jane or to tell her to not go into random rooms in her house. That's ridiculous for your mum to say that you need a lock. I'm from a South Asian background, by the way, and this tends to be the attitude of some older women, OP continues. They don't understand collectible culture or sentimentality of gifts. They think they're able to do whatever they want, open whatever they want. Also, edit for extra info, we installed a lock this morning on my bedroom door, and my mum warned her friend not to go in my room in the future. What? I live in a very small condo. It's not big enough for me to bring all of my belongings there, so I've left a lot of clothing and personal items with my parents. Okay, fine, but why is there a lock on your door? I mean, it's all well and good if you want a lock on your door. Like, to be fair, I mean, there's not much wrong with having a lock on your bedroom door for privacy reasons. I would probably say that if I could have one, I probably would have one, because why not? But the point is, you shouldn't be getting that lock on your door for this reason. Like, if you were thinking to yourself, okay, my mum suggested a lock on the door. I actually wouldn't mind a lock on my door anyway, so yeah, sure, I'll do it. That's fine, but not because some random old lady has no boundaries. And also, I don't care if she's like Asian or whatever. Like, that makes no difference to me at all. It doesn't matter someone's background. Just tell them not to do something. They should not do it. It isn't hard. It's not their house. It's yours. Well, it used to be yours. At least it's your mum's. I mean, your mum needs to grow a backbone. Surely. Like, just say, no, Jane, you can't go in my daughter's bedroom, you weird old bitch. Now for our third story. A friend who was a traveling nurse asked if she could come stay with us for 3 months with lots of extras. My wife and I used to live in Hawaii and had a house on the Big Island. One day, I got a call from a friend, Lana, who used to live on Oahu, but then moved to San Diego. She called me saying that she was now a traveling nurse and had to make a decision ASAP about whether to take a job on the Big Island or on the East Coast. She needed to make a decision within 30 minutes, and it was for 3 months, and she wanted to know if she could stay with us and pay rent for that time. I asked my wife, and she said, fine, it will be good to see Lana again. I called her back and said it would be fine for her to stay with us for that time. Then she tells me, oh, by the way, my boyfriend will be coming with me too. And also, I'll need a car too, because I can't afford to rent a car because I've got a $500 per month car payment here in California. That was a bit of a shock, given we'd agreed to her staying with us alone and now there'd be 2 of them. She also asked if we drank coffee, and we did, so she told us she made a 12-cup pot every day. She ended up going through all of our coffee in about a week after she arrived, and Kona coffee was $18 per pound. Right, I've got to stop you right there, OP. As soon as she said, oh, by the way, my boyfriend will be coming with me, it's just the easiest no ever. I don't understand some people like OP. I think it's because they're just too generous. People that can't say no, or that don't just immediately go, no, that's not happening. Maybe I'm just not like that. I mean, clearly I'm not like that as a person, and I respect people that are very selfless, but can't you just see that it's never going to work? I mean, I don't know. She's just clearly asking for too much immediately, which I would immediately say no to, but whatever, let's carry on. So, Lana and her boyfriend arrived, and he seemed nice and grateful. Then, a new wrinkle was that since she'd be doing a 12-hour shift, her boyfriend would have to drive her to work and then get her afterwards, making 2 trips each day. I figured out that it was 60 miles one way from our home to the hospital she worked at, which meant a 120-mile round trip, 240 miles each day with the 2 trips down there. So she'd be putting at least 960 miles per week on our car. Then she added that her boyfriend would go fishing during her shift and stay in town. but then also wanted to know where we could get some pot because her boyfriend liked to smoke pot while he went fishing. What am I reading? Honestly, at some point here, you have to just have a look at yourself and say, I'm not doing this. This isn't, it is entitlement, obviously, but you got to look at yourself, surely. That was too much to ask, OP said, knowing that her boyfriend would take our car, drive it around town, and be stoned part of the time. We started arguing about it, and after about a week, she found another place to rent, closer to work, and I said that giving her a free car to drive around in was too much to ask. She finally agreed to rent her own car and went no contact with us, and we called her about when she'd return our car. She also complained that the Honda Accord we loaned her did not have the AC working. Well, she eventually returned the car, but never informed us when. Just a final text message that said, "It's in your driveway." She never paid us a penny for her first week staying in our home. Talk about entitled friends. Also, there are two updates here. The first one is this. And the second day they were in our home, she asked, "What's the nudity policy in your home?" She wanted to prance around nude. Now, nobody's ever asked that question before, so I didn't have an answer ready. And secondly, prior to this, she was actually a generous friend who always invited us to stay in her home when we visited Oahu. She went out of her way to make special meals for us and seemed like a normal, sane person. We lost touch for a few years, and then she called out of the blue and asked to reconnect. We had no idea she'd make such outrageous demands after we initially agreed to let her stay with us. We were kind of stunned by her new demands and tried our best to accommodate her. Living with her was a whole different story. We did our best for the sake of our friendship, but it became too much once she lived with us. Okay, maybe I can understand it, but I don't know. You know what? No, I'm sorry. I have to agree with myself as I was reading that. There is a limit with entitled people, and I get it. She'd been nice in years gone by, but as soon as she said that, "Oh yeah, by the way, my boyfriend's staying as well," that would have been the end for me, because I would have said, right, well, I didn't agree on that, so you're already changing what we've agreed, and therefore that's not going to work for me and my wife. And then, yeah, maybe at that point you arrange something else and you come to a different agreement, or maybe you then say, okay, well, if your boyfriend is going to come, then that could just work, but we're going to need some money for that. And then like the car stuff as well, letting her use your car. I don't know, it's a lot, isn't it? I probably would have said, you know what? No, it's not going to happen. Now, obviously that doesn't detract from her entitlement. I just feel like at some point, as I said, you've got to look in the mirror and be like, this isn't going to work, no matter how generous you want to be. My younger brother passed away 5 years ago, and his ex-roommate stole his Bitcoin afterwards, plus a 4-year update. This was originally posted on September the 8th, 2016. My younger brother passed away nearly 5 years ago from an overdose, which devastated my family at the time. I knew he was into drugs, and I continually warned him about it, but he assured me he had it under control. I couldn't really take the moral high ground anyhow, since he knew I'd also indulged in it myself in my younger days, though that wasn't exactly a secret in my family. I was posted overseas when it happened, and felt some guilt that if I hadn't been away, I would have been able to prevent him being influenced by his circle of friends at the time. But ultimately, I realised I was not my brother's keeper. Afterwards, I assisted my parents with putting his belongings into storage to be sorted out at a later date, and I returned to my job. When my contract ended, I returned home and had the time to sort through some of my brother's things that my parents hadn't looked at yet. Among them was his computer, which I was hoping might have had some photos or other things of interest on it. I managed to salvage a few good pictures and videos, though most of it was of him hanging out with his friends at the time. It was still good to have a few extra memories of him from back then. It was while I was going through the installed programs, I noticed he had Bitcoin software installed. I know he used to buy certain things for himself and his friends online, so it wasn't a surprise to me that he had this. I knew that Bitcoin had gone up in value over the past several years, so part of me hoped he might have had an amount there. But when I ran the Bitcoin program, it said 0 balance. I wasn't too surprised at that, until I looked at the transaction details. There was regular activity there right up until the week before he passed away, and then nothing after that. Until 2 years ago, when the total balance at the time of 147 Bitcoin was transferred out of it. Wait, 147 Actual Bitcoins. Legit? Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry guys. I need to interrupt at this moment just so everybody is on the same page here and we can all understand together the levels of money that we're talking about here. Now, if this is true, we're talking insane amounts of money here. Even back then, a lot of money. But now, especially, like a truly ridiculous amount of money. Let me just get the calculator out. Let's go through this and talk about how ridiculous this is. So, right now, today, 147 Bitcoin is worth 16 million US dollars. Over 16 million US dollars. Which is quite frankly ridiculous. Now, it's worth mentioning and remembering that this was posted, this post in September of 2016, and OP's brother passed away 5 years before that. So 2011 is when he last had his Bitcoin, I suppose. But 2 years before OP posted this, so now we're talking in 2014, is when the transfer out of the 147 Bitcoins occurred. So I'm going to work out how much 147 Bitcoin was in dollars, which is crazy, in September of 2014. Right, so roughly in September 2014, the average price, it seems to be around $350, right? Which is crazy compared to what, 13,000, which it is today. So if we do $350 times 147 Bitcoin, we're getting to over $50,000. So that is the amount of money we are talking about here. 51,000 roughly US dollars back in 2014. A lot of money. Not 16 million, by the way. I mean, that just shows, I know we all know about this already, but if you got money into crypto early, and by the way, I'm not pro crypto investing at all. I think it's too risky. I think you're much better off investing your money in safer or relatively safer things like The World in general. Buy The World, good book. I haven't read it, but I like the idea of it. Or Own the World. Going off tangent here, $51,000. That is the amount of money that has been transferred out of OP's brother's account. Let's get back into the story. Right, so now we know how much money we are talking about. Let's get back into the story. OP continues. That transaction out of the account of 147 Bitcoins made no sense to me, unless someone else had a copy of his account or had hacked them from him somehow. But then I checked the history log on the computer and lo and behold, it had been started up several times on the date the transfer happened. Going back to my parents, I asked them if anyone else had used the computer since they got it back from storage. They remembered that yes, 2 years ago, my brother's old roommate looked them up and asked if they still had his computer and could he use it to get a copy of some files to do with their old rental. They'd let him use it for a couple of hours and he left afterwards and hadn't heard from him since. I looked him up on social media and from his post history, it seems like he suddenly came into some serious money judging from the purchases and activities he was involved with at around the same time. Remember guys, roughly $50,000 this is. So where do I go from here? Well, the evidence strongly points to him having stolen the Bitcoin, but what are my options? Do I confront him directly and do I have anything to stand on? My parents went through a lot over the years and it would be good if I could at least give them back something for all their blood, sweat and tears. And I know it's what my brother would have wanted. Okay, let's get into the comments right away. My initial thought here is that this is just stealing. It's illegal. Something can definitely be done here. Somebody said, number 1, get in contact with a lawyer immediately. Number 2, do your parents still have the message where he asked to use the computer? Security footage when he was at your house? Anything is useful here. If you don't have it, see what your lawyer thinks about this idea. Something along the lines of, contact him and ask if he used your brother's computer about 2 years ago when he was deceased and make sure it's on paper. Number 3, was the computer password protected? Number 4, post the address that the coins were sent to. Maybe some Bitcoiners can help try and find out which exchange he's used to cash out. Then we can try and contact the exchange for extra help. Hopefully, this guy has sold his Bitcoin through an exchange where he was verified with his passport or address, and then I think you'll have a solid case. Also, edit here, you need to act fast. This guy might be reading this subreddit and he might come across this post. Good luck. Yeah, I mean, that is a very good point. People that back in the day were dealing with Bitcoin and, maybe the dark web for who knows what, they're probably going to be on Reddit, let's be realistic. OP replied saying, I appreciate the quick response. I will answer in point form. 1, I'd like to avoid legal if possible due to what my brother was using them for and also the cost. Not ruling it out later though. 2, there was no password set. 3, I will post an update with the address information when I have it. Since it looks likely he did cash it out, I really hope you're right about him having done it somewhere he can be tracked. Somebody else said, good luck with legal pursuit of action in this circumstance. There's a reason why Bitcoin is used on the darknet market. Yeah, I mean, that is true. And that is, I suppose, one of the reasons why it's not been taken on by many governments is that the reason why it's good is also a reason why it's really, really bad and potentially very dangerous. OP said, that is my only concern with this if we do pursue this legally. I know my brother was using them for less than legal purchases at the time, which could be linked back to the Bitcoins. Somebody else though said, and I think this is a great point, what are they going to do? Arrest your brother? The worst case scenario would be to seize the Bitcoin, which I doubt would happen. I suppose OP is thinking he doesn't want his parents to find out. But then again, do your parents not already know that he died from an overdose and obviously therefore was taking drugs? I suppose they don't know necessarily that he was the one buying them or that he did them regularly or anything like that. That's the only logical reason I can think as to not get the police involved. I would 100% though get the police, get a lawyer involved. Okay, so next up we got a mini update actually on the same day. Just an update, says OP. I was sent a PM from a fairly notable individual in this subreddit with an offer to help, which I've accepted based on his history and reputation here. You may have guessed, by the way, this was originally posted on r/Bitcoin back in 2016. On his advice, I will be collecting the computer from my parents' place later today instead of the weekend, so we can jump on this ASAP due to this now being out in the open. He's also using his connections to get a free legal opinion from someone qualified in this area. I can't say much else until I hear back from them, but I'll be sure to provide further details as soon as I'm able. For now, I just want to thank the community in r/Bitcoin for all the kind words and advice you've given. It's people like you who restore my faith in humanity after experiencing idiots like my brother's ex-roommate. Now, interestingly, many people were skeptical of the unknown Redditor's assistance. For example, this person who said, trust nobody, especially people who privately send you mail. Regardless of what their reputation is, they might F you over. It's happened in the past plenty enough times. It makes me wonder, if this person has such a great reputation, why aren't they coming out in the open? I understand the sentiment there. I would probably disagree with that. I imagine if they are a well-respected member of this subreddit, they've helped people out before and there's evidence of that. Also, what could they possibly be looking to gain from this? Like, the money's gone. The money potentially is only ever going to go to you or your parents because it's your brother's Bitcoin. I suppose if the Bitcoin was still lying around somewhere, this random person could potentially try and steal it. I don't think so. I think they're genuinely trying to help. I would definitely utilize this person. Obviously, use your own thinking, but yeah, it seems legit to me. I don't know why people are worrying that much, although I do agree with the general sentiment. And then 4 years ago, the entire reason that I am making this episode or able to read this story out with a great conclusion, we get this update. So this was posted on February the 20th, 2021, 4.5 years after the original post. 4 years ago, I posted about how the ex-roommate of my brother, who tragically passed away, took advantage of my parents to gain access to his computer after he died and stole his Bitcoin stash. I originally posted to the relationship sub, but was quickly directed to repost to the Bitcoin sub to see if anyone there could offer any advice. Soon after doing that, I was privately approached by a credible individual from this group with an offer of assistance, which myself and my parents accepted. Through their network of contacts, we received expert technical advice and forensic analysis at absolutely no cost whatsoever, and legal representation that truly understood the issue at hand and was prepared to work on a no-win, no-fee basis. We owe all these people a massive debt of gratitude for what they've been able to achieve for us here, and this has finally come to a conclusion in these last few weeks. Yeah, so pretty much I was right. Like, you're not going to get someone trying to scam you when there's nothing to even scam, and people on Reddit especially are very helpful, and I maintain if this guy had some history of helping other people, then yeah, go for him, and clearly it was the right decision. Anyway, the analysis of the computer took several weeks before we heard back, but the results were extremely promising. They had identified that while all the Bitcoin had indeed been transferred to another wallet, not all the Bitcoin in this wallet had been spent. There was still approximately 36 Bitcoin remaining in there that had not been touched. Okay, so going back to my previous maths, I've got that at about $10,000 worth of Bitcoin in September 2016. It's roughly around that. Anyway, of what had been spent, there were significant trails of evidence, which was used as the starting point of commencing legal action against the individual in question. So yeah, 111 of those Bitcoins had been spent then. So what, roughly $40,000. It's taken time and much of it is under non-disclosure, but what I can confirm is that an agreement was made to withdraw our case against him in return for transferring this remaining balance back to my brother's estate. Yesterday, our lawyer let us know that this has now been done. They're handling the technical aspects of this for us, but the upshot is that the cash equivalent of nearly 29 Bitcoins will shortly be transferred to my parents. This couldn't have come at a better or more needed time. The past 12 months with COVID-19 has taken a significant toll on them. Their business was up against the wall and they potentially stood to lose everything unless things turned around. So this cash infusion has taken away all that fear and stress they were living under. Okay, so this took this long. So they were getting, more maths incoming here, 29 Bitcoin in what, February of 2021? Now, the price of Bitcoin in February 2021 was $46,000. So they're getting 29 lots of $46,000. Wow, over $1 million? $1.3 million? My goodness. Anyway, back to it. This entire saga began with the premature death of my brother. It now concludes with him leaving behind a legacy of hope and optimism for our parents. Somewhere up there, I know he is smiling and cheering them on. In the end, you did good, Raf. And there we go, just a final note at the end, just to sort of, support my maths, which I'm doing slightly off the cuff here, so may not have been exactly accurate, but in 2014, it was worth $50,000 to $60,000. And then in 2021, it was worth $1.5 million. Yeah, I've got it at $1.3.5 million, which is just insane. What a cool end to the story, I suppose. So there we go. That is going to do it for this one. As I said, great end to the story. It's one of those very rare cases. The fact that it takes so long for legal things to happen and cases to occur actually benefits a party that normally would want things to happen pretty quickly. Like, every single delay there was with the entire case, with the lawyers, etc., was actually just helping OP and his family, because that Bitcoin was just accruing more and more value. It's pretty ridiculous, but I suppose in a roundabout way, it was a good thing that it took as long as it did, 4.5 years later. I say it's a good thing. All this with the context that, of course, it's very, very sad that your brother passed away very tragically. But as a passing gift to give your parents, your family over $1 million, it's pretty cool. Am I the jerk for ruining my brother and his wife's pregnancy news with the news of my recent diagnosis? This was originally posted on June the 9th, 2020. A bit of backstory. My brother and I are very close. His wife and I, not so much. We've had our fair share of tension. Anyway, I fell sick in the middle of May, but I held off getting checked out because of COVID and safety reasons. Eventually, when June started, I decided to go and check it out. Turns out it was stage 2 breast cancer. I decided to tell my family 2 days ago, since lockdown laws had been lifted. So I invited everyone over, and when I told my brother and his wife, he said, okay, that's fine, because he has news to share too. So our family gathered and my brother decided to go first. He did ask me, and he announced that his wife is 4 months pregnant. Of course, everyone was overjoyed. After about an hour, they asked about my news, and I knew this was probably the last time in a long while before I had everyone here in person, so I told them. And of course, the initial joyous atmosphere was gone. The rest of the evening was a lot of support for me and not a lot of attention on my brother and his wife. My brother didn't seem to mind this, as he was quite distraught with my news, but I saw his wife pretty upset and cornered off. So I decided to approach her, and I apologized for the timing of it all. She told me I could have waited a bit and Skyped everyone with the news, as it's just stage 2, and let my brother and her have this moment with their family. I told her that I initially called this meeting for this exact reason, and she said she knows, but I knew my news would dampen everyone's mood. So I told her she's being ridiculous, and I wanted to tell my family in person, since they are my family after all, and she burst into tears and demanded to go home, which my brother obliged to, even though he was confused. He promised he would come see me soon, since he stays close by to me. Later that evening, I got a message from him asking if I told his wife that she isn't part of the family and that I deliberately wanted the attention on me because that is what she's upset about. Also, the next day, my parents called me to check up on me, and my mum mentioned that my brother's wife called yesterday evening, really upset, telling them what I said and claiming I'm jealous because she's pregnant and I'm trying to ruin her life. I told my parents what actually happened and what I really said, and it's caused not only tension between his wife and me, but my parents and her too. And now she's also blaming me for my parents not being her biggest fans. My brother is torn, but he's been trying to talk to her, which results in more tears and a strain on their marriage. All this drama is making me think that I should have just called up everyone rather, or just told my brother that his news had to wait, even though that would have been selfish of me. I really wanted my family's support that day, but I'm starting to rethink whether it was worth all this drama and potentially causing further problems. So, Reddit, am I the jerk? Okay, so just immediately, you're obviously not the jerk here. You created this entire thing to tell your news. Yeah, it's a shame, I suppose, in a way, that they wanted to tell their news at the same time and that yours was very sad and theirs was happy. I suppose you could have potentially said, just so you know, I'm going to be saying some pretty bad, tragic news. Maybe that would have been the thing to do. I don't know. But you're all together with your family. You can tell them, you should be able to, in theory, tell them these sort of things without it ruining days or whatever. Like, on the one hand, yeah, it's great that your brother's going to be having a child. On the other, it's really sad that you have breast cancer. This is life. Like, in a family, I think you should be able to talk about these things at the same time. And even if, say, a few days later, your brother and his wife announced that they were having a child, I don't think it would have been like much more joyous or anything. It's just these two things are happening at the same time within your family. Everyone should be able to deal with that. It's not great timing, but that is life, as I said. However, from your brother's wife's point of view, your sister-in-law, I mean, just pick me, isn't it? Like, I get it. You wanted your pregnancy announcement to be super happy, and that is genuinely a real shame that it hasn't been as happy as it should have been. But once again, this is life. You also were the one that decided to call this sort of get-together. Your brother and his wife could have done their own one at a later date or another time if they wanted to, but you did this. You can't take the blame for it. Let's jump into some comments before we get into the update on this one. Somebody said, "You are not the jerk. You called the meeting for your news." Also, if sharing it in person was unimportant, then why couldn't your sister-in-law share the pregnancy news over Skype? Her own reasoning should have been good enough for her. And good luck with your treatment. Yeah, great point, by the way. What's more important, the fact that your sister-in-law is having a baby or that you have stage 2 breast cancer? I mean, not really comparing the two, but I think that the breast cancer is more serious and yeah, it requires a meeting like this rather than a pregnancy. Somebody else said, "Not the jerk. I was so ready to call you the jerk from the title alone, but you arranged this meeting to break the news of something very serious, and your brother decided that it was time to break the news as well. Could you have handled this better? Well, yes. You could have asked him privately what his news was when he said he had something to announce, so that it didn't get awkward like this." Yeah, I do agree with that. I did say that. But regardless, the blame doesn't fall on you at all. But the fact is that cancer is like a bit more of an important thing to announce than a pregnancy, and your sister-in-law made a huge misstep getting jealous and saying what she did. Skype, really? She's definitely the jerk here. There are things more important than a pregnancy, especially because a pregnancy has a lot more of a time frame to announce than a disease you're going to need to get some pretty obvious treatment for. Also, I wish you a good recovery. Okay, so this commenter is agreeing with me really that, yeah, it's more important to tell your family the news about cancer than it is a pregnancy. I mean, look, they're both extremely important, life-changing things, but you know what? I agree. Now, OP also left this edit after all the comments, after all the help and advice, before we get into the update. She said, "Wow, I didn't expect this to get so much lovely feedback, and to think I was slightly scared to post this. Thank you all for the unnerving support, love, and hugs. I read and am still reading every single comment made, and I really, really appreciate it. I will most definitely fight through. Thank you all so much. I just wanted to add a few points. When my brother told me he had news too, he was really super excited, and he added it as a, just by the way, I'll announce mine too. He did apologise and admit afterwards, if he'd known what my news was, he would have held off his, because right now what's important is my recovery. He also admitted he wrongfully assumed that my news would automatically be good. I'm usually always the happy chirpy one. His wife wasn't too fond of this either. My brother's wife also had a miscarriage at the beginning of the year, which is why this pregnancy, I suppose, was extra special. Oh man, that does, I suppose, make her side of the story a little bit more, I don't know, meaningful, I suppose. She probably was like even more excited than ever to announce this, and yeah, probably pretty crushing saying what you said, but doesn't take away from the fact that they could have done this themselves, and the fact that you had terrible news to give doesn't mean that you are to blame for them feeling bad about it or whatever. I don't know why I couldn't tell my brother over the phone. We're really close, and I knew it would have crushed him. I couldn't steal him away at the gathering either because he was the last to arrive, and when he did, he just quickly mentioned, "Hey, OP, mind if I go first?" And I was frozen on the spot, so I said, "Sure." Yeah, also pretty silly on my part. It's hard to explain that feeling where you absolutely froze and there's a big lump in your throat that prevents you from speaking, but saying the news in the first place was really difficult to begin with. Also, just another point to clarify, I'm not a saint, but my brother does mean a heck of a lot to me. It's exactly why his wife and I cleared the air between us before, because I wouldn't deliberately make his life heck by peeing her off. Hence why, when I saw she was upset, I approached her. And when she told me I could have Skyped, I responded with, I wanted to tell them in person since they're my family, and they'd probably want to be there with me when I broke the news. I never once implied she wasn't a part of it. My brother and parents know this. Okay then, let's get into the update. This was posted 1 month later. Sorry this is so late. A lot has been happening the past month since the news came out, and since I received a tremendous amount of love from Reddit, I thought it would be only fair to let you all know what happened. First and foremost, I've started treatment. Also one of the reasons I couldn't update sooner. Thank you all for your well wishes. I plan on bouncing back as soon as I can. Anyway, I could see that my brother was under a lot of stress, and I finally sat him down to talk about it properly. He showed me a bunch of texts that his wife sent him, telling him he is a trashy father for choosing me over his family. She said I was seeking attention and nobody cares about her. And one thing that really got to me was that she told him to choose once and for all. And if he picks me, he loses her and his child. And if he picks her, she doesn't want me in their lives at all. I felt terrible, not only for him, but knowing that I could have prevented all of this. I took the time to apologize for putting him in this position. And if I just pulled him aside soon enough and given him a heads up, he would have truly understood. He tells me I shouldn't apologize because he should have been more considerate. He also mentioned that his wife would have probably still gotten mad at him whether they did or didn't give the news on that day. So I decided I should invite her over for a coffee to sort out everything. I spoke to her alone. I asked her about everything. She was very cold and didn't really answer. So I started talking first by apologizing if I made her feel excluded from the family or that her pregnancy was of any less importance. I explained that I should have given them a heads up so we could have avoided what had happened altogether, and that was my fault. And that I was very sorry, but I also mentioned that the way she reacted and went to the extent of lying just wasn't okay. She then started crying and vented out about how angry she's been and that my brother always put me first, and recently they've been going through a rough patch, and when he sided with me, it made her even more upset and feel even more lonely. She admitted she lied to my parents and my brother, saying that she was hoping they would show her more sympathy, and when they were cold to her, she got even more upset. After hours of talking, she apologized for how she acted and has been acting, and she would like if we moved on from this. My brother came later and they both went home. He texted me saying they both spoke for hours and agreed to couples therapy. My parents are currently living with me and helping me out tremendously, but they're not quite happy with my sister-in-law just yet. Although they promised to try to work things out, things finally seem to calm down, and let's hope it stays that way. By the way, none of this would have been possible without the feedback you all gave me, and I'm indebted to that, so thank you. Also, just to add, all of you are so kind, honestly, but I want to clarify that I am no saint, nor am I selfless. I know what happened wasn't entirely on me. However, in order to focus solely on my recovery, I can't be stressed out about this whole situation and have all this tension around. Seeing my brother being put in that position, and my sister-in-law, as hurtful as she was, being upset and holding hatred can affect herself and the baby. I did what I could to fix things so that everyone can focus on being healthy and being positive without holding any grudges. I know I sure will. I know my sister-in-law. She can be very stubborn and unreasonable, and if I left things in her hands, I'm 99% sure it would have resulted in much, much worse circumstances than me putting the first hand forwards. At least now I can focus on my recovery without any distress or toxicity. I'm human. I felt angry. I felt upset. Yeah, I wanted to give her a piece of my mind, but in doing so, that's not helping myself, her, my brother, or my family. It's only damaging things further. This realization is what prompted me to let it all go and focus on positivity and my mental and physical health. And lastly, I spent all day on Reddit reading every little or big comment made, and honestly, I didn't know you could feel so much support from people you've never met. You are all the amazing humans. Thank you for the upvotes, comments, and awards. I'm still reading every single one, but this will be my final edit. And for the people who asked, I'm 24 years old. Well, there we go. We're seeing the beauty of Reddit once again. That is why I love this platform. I've never seen a social media or like even another sort of online community that at times can be as supportive and as amazing as Reddit can be. Now, this is not like a one size fits all. I know that there are corners of Reddit which are very bad, but there are also corners of it like this which are great. And I think when you do need the support of randomers on the internet or tips and advice, etc., Reddit is the place to go. Let's just compare it, right, to Twitter, X, I don't know, any other online social media you can think of. Arguably even Facebook these days, maybe less so, but X, like that is a very, very toxic place. Let's be honest. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, probably better. I don't really know. I don't really use them, but like you're not getting a community like you get on Reddit, I don't think, in any other corner of the internet. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. Actually, I'm interested to hear if you guys use Reddit at all. This might be a crazy question, but some people don't really care about Reddit as a platform. They just like listening and getting my thoughts on these stories. Interestingly, I actually reckon quite a lot of you are like that. But yeah, let me know. Have you ever actually been on Reddit before? Do you go on it? Do you read stories yourself, or do you just come on YouTube, Spotify, and listen to me read them? Yeah, who knows? I think the answers may be surprising, or maybe you all use Reddit and you've always known what it is for years. But yeah, as for this story, I don't know. It's a tough one. I do think that perhaps everyone involved should have done better right away to make sure this didn't happen. But I kind of get it. Like if I'm in OP's position and I'm thinking I've got this terrible news to say, I'm really nervous about it anyway, then my sister comes along saying, I've got an announcement as well. I don't know how I'm reacting to that. I'm not suddenly saying, no, don't do that. I've got a really tragic thing to say. It's just much easier said than done. Okay, so this first post offers a bit of background. It was posted on November the 5th, 2023 with the title, Am I the Jerk for not allowing my dad to see his grandchild for Christmas? Hello, here is my current dilemma. I am a 30-year-old woman, and my dad, who is 57, invited me for Christmas this year. Now, usually this hasn't been a problem for us to attend, since he only lived an hour away. But he just bought a new house, which is 3 hours away by car, which turns out to be a bit of an issue for us for the following reasons. We have a 15-month-old son, and the last time we visited my dad for a day trip, my son was inconsolable the entire way, just wanting to get out of his car seat. This means another 6 hours to look forward to, driving back and forward to my dad's house, and just thinking about that makes me stressed out for my son. We do not have a car. We live in a city that doesn't require it, and we bike and take public transport. This means we will have to rent a car to get there, which is incredibly expensive in our country. We do not have a travel bed for my son, who still needs to sleep in a crib for safety reasons. My dad doesn't have a crib in his house. This means we need to go out and buy a crib just to use that one time in my dad's house. So, as a solution, I offered that we could celebrate Christmas at our place. But my dad, who has a car and no small children, refuses without giving any reasons. I've told my dad that for my son's sake and for our sanity's sake, we cannot attend Christmas in his house this year. But that's left him very upset, claiming that I'm keeping his grandchild from him and that families should stay together at Christmas. Just for info, in my country, Christmas and opening presents is in the evening, which is why we'd have to stay the night. OP then asks if they are the jerk here or not. You can probably guess what subreddit this was originally posted to. Right, now let's get into the second background post. This was posted 3.5 months later on February the 27th, 2024. Titled, "Am I the jerk for not forgiving my parents' reaction to me being SA'd as a child?" Remember guys, these are just background posts before we get into the actual story, but as you can sort of tell, they're giving important information and context to this one, and especially the relationship between OP and her parents. OP says, "When I was 6 to 11 years old, I was SA'd by my maternal grandfather. I never told my parents while it was going on, since I simply didn't understand what was going on and I didn't know it was wrong. It was never intercourse, but a lot of inappropriate touching, mostly him telling me to touch his private parts. At least, that's what I remember. It all stopped when my grandfather died when I was 11. I kept what happened a secret from my family for a long time. I think it was a mix of shame and fear that kept me from saying the truth. But when I turned 16, I finally gathered up the courage and I told them. I told my mum first, as she was always the one I could talk to about sensitive subjects. But to my shock and dismay, her first reaction was disbelief. She simply could not understand how her dad, who was a well-loved figure in our family, could do such a thing. He never abused me, she said. She also told me she would talk to my dad about it, so I assume she did. Fast forward 3 weeks later. I bring up what happened in a conversation with my dad, and he's immediately shocked. It turns out mum never told him. This progresses into a fight between my parents, and after that day, it was never spoken of again. My mum later passed away from cancer. I brought that whole situation up with my dad the other day. I told him that I was disappointed in them as parents and how I felt as if they failed me. I told him that if this was my child, I would at least have talked to them and most likely gotten a therapist involved. My dad told me that I never expressed a need for a therapist, so he didn't know that I needed one. And I told him that I was a child and had no idea what I needed and that my parents should have guided me. So, am I the jerk for being angry at my parents even though I did not express a need for help? Okay, so that is it for the two background posts. Now let's get into the original post, the main point of this episode. But yeah, hopefully those background posts have given us the context we need to really understand what I'm about to narrate. So this post, titled, "I told my dad to never speak to me again the day my son died," was posted just 9 days ago at the time of recording on the 18th of August on r/true off my chest. My son, 32 weeks into my pregnancy, passed away very recently. We knew it was going to happen, so we invited our closest family to say goodbye to him at the hospital. I've always had a very difficult relationship with my dad, but I decided that this was an important thing for him to be a part of. I also needed someone who could take care of our 3-year-old son at home while we were at the hospital and I was giving birth to our stillborn son. He calls me the day before he arrives, asking when I expect to give birth. I tell him that I do not know exactly, since the birth is induced and it can take anywhere between hours to days for my body to react to the medication. He responds, "Well, I need to let my work know how long I'll be away, so I need a better time frame than that." I repeat myself, as I literally do not know when I'll go into labour, but he keeps pressing me for a more precise answer, with quotes like, "The hospital must know, just ask a doctor, they'll know," etc. In the end, my husband has to grab the phone and tell my dad to figure it out with his work. What a lovely dad you have. Going through a truly horrible process, but all he cares about is when exactly it's going to happen and when he needs to get the time off of work. What a lovely man. I think this is why the background was important here, because now we know about their relationship, right? Anyway, my dad then arrives with his girlfriend and is, throughout the entire day, extremely visibly distraught. I think to myself, wow, he really cares, and I feel incredibly bad for him. But I also noticed some strange behaviour from him. Throughout the 3 hours he was there, he just places himself in a corner in a complete zombie state. He doesn't once console me or my husband. He doesn't once take the initiative to go for a walk with our 3-year-old son or talk to him. He just sits there without a single word, and I have to handle my son while I'm also trying to arrange paperwork with the hospital about my stillborn baby. The only thing my dad tells me that day is, quote, "You should probably go home. Your 3-year-old is very confused and he needs you." At this point, I'd just given birth to my son 3 hours prior, and prior to that been hospitalized for bleeding. My dad then ends up walking out of the room and taking the elevator down. My husband, being a bit worried about him, follows and asks him what is going on. My dad then looks at him and says, "My girlfriend and I broke up." My husband doesn't react much with other than telling him he's sorry. My husband also decides to keep this from me for the time being because I'm dealing with enough grief at that point. Later in the day, we all return home. My dad, still sitting motionless on the couch, is staring into the room. His girlfriend gets up to use the bathroom, and he then turns to me with tears in his eyes and drops the bomb on me as well. We broke up, but I don't want to talk about it right now. Clearly, he was trying to keep this announcement a secret from his now ex, since he waited until she left the room to tell me. In that moment, I can't take it anymore. I glare at him and I tell him, "I cannot handle this right now and I think you need to leave. Don't contact me." I needed my dad that day. My mum passed away some time ago and my husband's parents live halfway across the world. I needed my dad more than I'd ever needed him. And instead of embracing me, telling me he loves me, telling me he loves our son, comforting me, he's lost in his own grief over his frickin' breakup. I don't even know if a single tear that day was shed for my son. At the same time, I can't help but feel bad for him, but couldn't he have waited a couple of days to tell me about this? Why did I need to know it on that day? Yeah, I'm probably just a jerk, I don't really know, but I needed to vent this out. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, there is an update to this one, but first of all, let's get into some comments. Somebody said, "I'm so sorry for everything that you, your husband, and your 3-year-old son are going through. You just needed your dad to be your dad. How is your other son doing?" OP replied, "He is being a 3-year-old and is being such a brave and amazing little boy. I adore him 1,000 times more than I ever have, and I'm showering him with love. He's no doubt affected by it, but I hope we can heal together as a family and I can give him space to grieve in his own way." Somebody else asked, "Has your dad always been like this? Between how he behaved on the phone and how he behaved at the hospital, your dad strikes me as a very selfish person. I think that you were well within your rights to tell your dad to leave and to not contact you. I'm sorry for your loss." Yeah, well, we know because we've seen the background post, but OP says anyway, "We have a very, very strained relationship. When I lost my mum as a teenager, he also engulfed himself in grief and forgot to care for his 4 kids. I had to arrange my mum's funeral because he couldn't handle it. He never once asked how his kids were doing, never once checked in on us." Oh wow, I mean, that is horrible, and part of me does feel terrible for him, but also you can't leave your kids to organise their own mother's funeral when they're teenagers. Someone else said, "You need to ask yourself why your husband wasn't able to tackle the administrative tasks of form filing and childminding. I imagine that if your husband was in the middle of a health crisis, that you wouldn't hand him a clipboard and a 2-year-old. I suppose that is a fair question. OP responds saying, "Thank you. Just to clear it up, in that moment my husband was talking to a photographer about how to arrange the photos of our son. He was in another room and didn't see them handing me the paperwork." Somebody else asked, "So if they broke up, then why did they come to the hospital together?" OP says, "I asked myself the same question. Probably because the ex has a heart and wanted to be there for you in a small way. Yeah, maybe." OP responds saying, "Perhaps. She's genuinely a really sweet person and she's been there for my son more than my dad ever has, so it could be her wanting to be there and support us." And then OP said to another commenter, "I can see your point. I'm not quite sure when they broke up in the process, but it must have been relatively close to my son's passing. I don't know what happened between them. My dad has some anger issues and some extreme outbursts, and perhaps she had enough and had to step out despite the tragic circumstances. I've gotten to know her quite well over the years, and although I can't claim to know her to the core, I'd be extremely surprised if she decided to break up with him during this time if it wasn't highly necessary. I hope to talk to her one of these days to understand what happened." I do have sympathy for the double whammy my dad was hit with. However, if my child ever went through something like this, I can guarantee that the world could be falling apart, and that wouldn't stop me from being there to hug and hold my own child. Whether she broke up with him close to the event or not, I do blame my dad for not being capable of sitting aside his own trash for 3 hours just to be there and be present. Okay then, and let's finally get into the update posted the very next day. My dad called today 4 times. I didn't want to talk to him, so I asked my husband if he could. I was genuinely afraid that something had happened. My dad used 30 seconds on asking how we are. The conversation then immediately turned into him complaining about his now ex. When he started telling my husband about how he's already signed up for a dating site because, quote, now I need to find a new girlfriend, he hung up. My dad called my grandmother and complained about how difficult I was being during his visit at the hospital because I didn't ask why he was so sad. I've blocked him on every possible contact, and I will never let him near my family again. Okay, so there we go. That is the end of that one. Incredibly sad story. Again, this happened or was posted just 1 week ago. So yeah, thoughts and prayers are with OP and her immediate family. Well, her husband and their child. Not obviously with her dad, going through such a terrible experience. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about hearing some other posts from any person that does post one of these stories or events that have happened to them on Reddit, which do provide more context, because, you know, I feel like without those 2 background posts, we wouldn't have got the whole picture in terms of how horrific OP's dad has been for probably quite a long time, going back obviously to that essay that she experienced at such an early age, which was just discounted by her mum and dad. Just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong, it must be pretty weird and horrific to hear that your dad has essayed your daughter, but surely you don't react like OP's mum and dad did there. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, your dad is just a genuinely terrible person. What is going on? The top comment actually on this whole post says, her father has the IQ of a turnip. What a thoughtless creature, and I could not sum it up better myself. My wife's traumatic childhood is killing my marriage. This was originally posted on February the 6th, 2025. And just going to give an overall trigger warning here. There's quite a lot of abuse, manipulation, some assault, mental health struggles, accusations of infidelity, domestic violence, body shaming, controlling behavior, obsessive behavior, gaslighting, and attempted murder is mentioned, so just be warned. This is long, but I want to share my story and hear your thoughts. I am a 46-year-old man, and I've been married to my wife, who is 45, for over 20 years. We have 3 teenage kids. Until recently, I would have said we had a wonderful marriage, but as I look back, I think out of pure love and obsession, I've been looking at things with rose-coloured glasses. We met in college. Her best friend went to the same college as me, and that's how we met. She had a tough upbringing. Her mum was very young when she was born, and her parents were never married. She didn't meet her biological dad until she was in her 30s, which is a story for another day. Her mum isn't really a good person, and they are no contact with one another. Until my wife was a teenager, she shared a bedroom with her mother in her grandparents' house. They were more like sisters. When she was a teenager, her mum got married to another awful person. She had an affair with a married guy. Eventually, he got divorced and married my mother-in-law. He had 2 kids who were slightly older than my wife. Imagine what that was like. Merge 2 families with teenage kids. Their dad cheated on their mother and then shacked them all up in one house. I can't imagine. There are countless stories of the horrors my wife went through as a child. Her mum told her she should have aborted her, tried to push her out of a moving car. There were smacks and slaps. My wife was never complimented growing up. I've never heard my mother-in-law compliment my wife. My wife was always smart, did well in school, didn't get in trouble, helped around the house, cooked for her family. She was, and is, very pretty. Her mother only criticised her, and it was constant. As if that wasn't bad enough, she was SA'd in college by some friend of her stepbrother. To say that this has taken a mental toll is the understatement of the century. I have loved her with every sense of my being. I've supported her in her therapy. I'm by no means a perfect husband, but I've tried my best to be supportive and loving. Anyway, fast forward to today. I've been married for over 20 years. My wife obviously has a lot of issues stemming from the above. I love her more than anything in the world, but it's not been easy. I've borne the brunt of some pretty outlandish treatment, and I'm wondering if I've been blinded by love and if this is not a safe and healthy environment for me. I don't know if I could ever leave. I don't know if I could do that to her or do that to my kids, but I'm starting to feel like I'm only here to serve the purpose of providing support: financial, emotional, physical, and parenting. So here are some of the things that have happened. About 5 years ago, we'd gone to a beach location for a long weekend with a lifelong friend of mine and his family. It was an all-around great time. One night, while we were leaving an amusement park, we were walking with the kids for ice cream. We walked past the bar and a baseball game was ending. My friend and I say to the wives that we want to grab a drink and watch the end of the game while they get ice cream next door. Everyone seemed fine with it. This is something I never do. My friend and I were gone for 20 to 30 minutes. When we got home, my wife lost it. She couldn't believe I abandoned the family for half an hour tops while they ate ice cream. That was the first time she hit me. She punched me 4 times and threw a chair at me. I was shocked. This pattern escalated over the next few months. She slammed the shower door on me, breaking it and effectively trapping me naked in the shower. If she'd not brought a screwdriver to remove the shower door, I'd still be in there. Right before the holidays in 2019, 4 months after this hitting started, my wife had a disagreement with my daughter. My wife made a mistake and said something she shouldn't have. It should have been easily fixable with a quick apology, but my wife turned it into World War III with my daughter, which I thought was unnecessary, but my wife and I put up a unified front with our kids and addressed things later. After my daughter went to her room to be punished, my wife and I went into our room. I tried to calm her down, but apparently she wanted me to match her level of outrage, and my wife unleashed the fury on me. She punched me countless times. I ended up with a bloody nose and a cut beneath my eye. I'm over 6 feet tall and I'm a pretty fit guy. My wife's almost a foot shorter than me and maybe 80 pounds lighter than me. I sat there and let her punch me countless times. I remember being frozen and also being afraid. I didn't even want to grab her hands out of fear I'd be blamed for the fight and arrested. She was unhinged, screaming as she pummeled me. It was awful. It was really fun to coach my daughter's basketball game with a badly bruised and cut up face the next day. After this, I freaked out. I realized the situation had gotten way out of hand. My wife apologized profusely. I said I couldn't go on like this. Our kids heard the commotion and we later had to talk to them about it. I told my wife this wasn't safe for me. She had a near breakdown out of fear I'd leave her. She discussed this with her therapist. We went to couples therapy for the first time. It was a mess. I've come to realize that therapists, or at least the ones we've seen, focus on the patient with the most needs. Given my wife's past, she has the most mental health issues, and so that is where the focus was. It was really hard to be put on the back burner. COVID came and the couples therapy stopped. We tried again last year and that was worse for the same reasons. What else has this marriage been like? Well, we've always been very sexually active. My wife is very beautiful. She gets attention anywhere she goes, although she usually seems oblivious to it. I sometimes feel infatuated with her, but she grew up with a mother that hated her and constantly took her down. I have always complimented her. Her beauty, her intellect, how wonderful of a mother she is, how incredible of a cook she is, how incredible of a hostess she is for holidays. She's amazing in so many ways. I think I'm good looking, but nothing special. I'm in good shape, but I'm going bald and I've aged. Most people would say this guy is punching above his weight. I was good with this for a long time, but I think as I started to feel somewhat insecure as I aged, I'm not particularly vain or anything, but I look for reassurance from her about my physical appearance. For the first time in my life, I felt insecure. I almost felt embarrassed. She didn't come through for me, quite the opposite. She'd never really complimented me about my appearance our whole relationship. Maybe she's just brutally honest. I don't know. One night, after we were intimate, she told me how small I was. This was a completely unsolicited comment after 15 plus years together. I think I'm average down there. I've measured myself and I'm just under 6 inches. I always thought she was pleased, so hearing a complaint in that department was quite a blow. By the way, just letting you know, that if you are just under 6 inches, that is actually above average. She later admitted she said it to hurt me out of some sort of anger. She wasn't even sure what she was mad about. She's tried to walk that back, but it's been tough. Not long after that, I asked her what was physically attractive about me. I was just looking to feel better about myself. She told me there was nothing. Those were her words, and she was kind of shocked that I was taken aback by that and hurt by it. Hey, I asked, so I guess I deserve it? She's tried to walk that back a lot over the years as well. Around that time, we went to dinner, and I sort of said, hey, I'm over 40, and for the first time ever, I'm feeling anxiety and stress over work, the kids, and life, etc. I asked if she could try to be more supportive and caring, but she said no, that she was a good wife already and was providing support already. She couldn't do any more. Exactly what you want to hear from your partner. We actually talked through a lot of it. I expressed how it made me feel. She apologized for what she said. She's actually way more giving of compliments than she ever has been. She's improved there, but it feels forced, only being said because I asked her to. It doesn't always feel sincere. I've discussed it at length in therapy, and I'm basically good with my appearance and what I can and cannot control, but I still think it was unnecessarily mean of her. My wife has a massive fear of abandonment and has massive trust issues. She regularly accuses me of cheating. I've been nothing but faithful. I have to travel some for work, on average about 3 days a month, some months more and some months less. She regularly wakes me up in the middle of the night to FaceTime to see if anyone is in my room. There's obviously never been. One night, last year, I had to travel to give an important big presentation. I had to give it the first thing in the AM. I prepared for weeks and it was stressful. I'm presenting the work of my team, so the pressure is on me to show the good work that everyone else has done. My wife and I spoke around 10 o'clock, talked for about a half hour, and I went to bed. At 2 a.m, I woke up to banging on the hotel door. She had somehow convinced the hotel manager, huge national hotel chain, so I'm not sure how this is compliant with their policies, to check on me because of an emergency. I realized I'd maybe missed 10 calls and maybe 30 text messages from her. Yeah, I'd been asleep. So we FaceTime, we confirm there's no one there in the room with me. She wasn't sorry or anything. She was mad that it took her so long to get a hold of me. I was now wide awake and I had to give this presentation. Then I had to work a full day, attend a work dinner, all of that on basically 3 hours of sleep. My wife has always been insanely jealous of other women. My first boss after college was like 4 years older than me. Her husband worked at the same company. My wife hated her, I guess because I'd talk about her. She was the person I worked closest with. I basically gave up any female friendships that I had, not that I was particularly close with any other women. One thing that was a particular issue for her was bachelor parties when all my friends were getting married. She hated the idea of me going to a strip club. Okay, fine. I don't particularly enjoy strip clubs. Nothing against the workers there, but I just see it as they just want some money and I don't need to pay to see a really attractive woman. So anyway, neither of us had strippers or anything like that at our bachelor and bachelorette parties. I had a great time at mine. We played golf, went to an awesome dinner, and then gambled afterwards. Anyway, some friends of mine did go to strip clubs for their bachelor parties. I always told my wife, and she wanted me to attend. I offered to skip that part, but I don't think she wanted to be seen by my friends or the other wives as controlling or a stick in the mud. I really don't know. But she wanted me to stay in contact the entire time. It was a little over the top, but I did it. I would literally text her nearly the entire time I was there, describing the situation, just talking about the night. Not sure why I even went to that part of the bachelor party. This happened 3 or 4 times. So she wants you to go, but she actually doesn't want you to go, but she only wants you to go so not everyone else calls her controlling, and then she wants a play-by-play for the entire time you're in there. What on earth? Anyway, when I got home, I got the 3rd degree. She examined me, she smelled me, she examined my body for evidence, examined my underwear. It was crazy. Before the last one, I said, I don't want to do this. I don't even want to go. But she didn't want that. She wanted to go and stay in touch. She promised to back off some, but she didn't really. At one point, a bouncer came over and told me to put the phone away when I was texting. So I did. I guess he was worried I was taking pictures. No, I wasn't taking pictures, I was staying in touch. Typing this out makes me realize how ridiculous it was. Yeah, but you don't realize it at the time. You're just in this pattern of abuse, but only when you come out of it and you're fully out of it do you actually understand how bad it was. This is actually terrible. Anyway, let's continue. All of this would have been no big deal. These bachelor parties all happened over 10 years ago. Recently, she was talking about her best friend's bachelorette party, which was years ago. My wife was the maid of honor. She'd always insisted that she never went to a strip club ever. Well, recently, she said something about the men pulling her friend up on stage and embarrassing her. I was like, where was this? Even in that moment, I wouldn't have cared that they went to a strip club. I trust her. Or until all this, I fully trusted her. She insisted this was at a, quote, typical bachelorette party restaurant that wasn't a strip club. I don't know what that is. Does anyone know? No, because that doesn't exist. I said that it felt like she wasn't being honest. She was offended. I said that I thought that the real issue was that she thought I might have put her through the same thing she put me through. I said I didn't like it, but it was so long ago, I don't really care. But she doubled and tripled down. So she goes to the other room and texts her best friend and comes back and hands me the phone to show me the text. She asked the friend, "Did we go to a strip club for your bachelorette party?" Which seems like an odd question to ask someone out of the blue, and the responses seemed odd. So I asked my wife, "Is this the full text exchange? It feels like something is missing." So I look in her deleted texts, and sure enough, there are deleted texts. I restore it, and the response from the friend is, "Oh, that is a definite yes." So I look at my wife shocked. I don't even know why she went down this path. She then says her friend is wrong. Now I'm annoyed and I'm asking, what happened that you would lie about this? What did you do? Horror stories about bachelorette parties are running through my mind. We have an argument over this where I am gaslit to heck. Doesn't remember, her friend is wrong, that's why she deleted the text, she didn't cheat or do anything wrong. All the comments about her level of attraction to me come back to my mind. No real resolution, but she promises me that she will figure out exactly what happened. Fast forward about a month to a holiday party we went to. We see her best friend for the first time in a few months. Of course, they talk a lot amongst themselves, which is absolutely fine. We leave, and 20 minutes later, we're in the car driving home, and she gets a text. It's from her best friend. It includes a screenshot from one of their other friends, and the best friend text says, "Wife and I just cannot remember what we did for my bachelorette party. Do you remember?" And the response is this whole description of a comedy show that they went to. The entire thing is so contrived, it's almost comical. There's no way this is true, and it's so clear that they discussed this at the party we were just at, and then came up with this plan. I feel so manipulated. My wife is in the passenger seat, and she is almost giddy reading the text and saying how they've now solved the mystery. Honestly, I think this is the worst thing so far. Like, the dumbest plan ever. It's so obvious what's been happening, and your wife is dumb enough, or I suppose insultingly thinks you're dumb enough to believe this absolute bull. I have no idea what happened at that bachelorette party, but the whole story and the lying was so unnecessary. She's still holding firm to her story, whatever it is. I wouldn't have even cared if they went to a strip club because I trusted my wife, but this story has made me lose trust. And now all the abuse over the years is coming back to me and making me see things differently. Have I ever been loved? Is my wife capable of love? Did she cheat on me? Am I the world's biggest fool? I love her and the family we've created. Obviously, there are so many positives to our relationship that I didn't list, but can all the positives in the world make up for all of this? Okay, now before we get into my thoughts on this and the update, which came 6.5 months later, OP first of all did leave this edit in the comments down below, pretty much saying, "Firstly, all comments and the DMs have been so caring and kind, even the ones trying to smack some sense into me. There's a lot of love out there from kind strangers. Thank you. Based on an exchange in my DMs, I'm sharing that the physical abuse did stop 5 years ago. She worked with her former therapist who specialized in CBT, and she's more in control of herself. I'm not sure she fully acknowledges the pain this has caused me and the kids, and all the other nonsense has continued. I'm not sure this changes anything for me though." I mean, this has just been so sad so far, because you can tell the more and more that OP is writing and going back through his past trauma, the more obvious it's becoming to him that he has been suffering for such a long time. I think he knew it already, but writing it out like this, I suppose anonymously on the internet, maybe even not anonymously, but then having people comment and give their thoughts and like say to him in DMs and everything, you can imagine the response to this. He's probably been like, oh my goodness me, how did I not realize this sooner? It is so obvious, but I've been living a terrible, abused life for such a long time. And he's right at the end as well. Like, even though perhaps the physical abuse has stopped, it doesn't take away from the fact that he has been manipulated and controlled, and any other sort of negative verb you want to use there is probably apt, for 20 years, which is just so sad. But yeah, there is an update to this one, which came 6.5 months later, as I said. I haven't looked at it. I never do look at the updates, by the way, because I want to react to them like you guys are, sort of live, if you can understand what I mean. But I really hope that it's positive. Let's see. I posted several months ago about my 20+ year marriage and how much nonsense I have put up with. People mostly gave harsh but good advice. I wanted to give an update and come back for more advice. So, back in February, when this was first posted, I insisted on a 2-month separation. Remember, the original post was February the 6th, 2025. We told the kids I was traveling for work, and when I was home, that my wife was traveling to meet friends. My wife hated every second of the separation. I had some conditions for returning. We tried marriage counselling again with a third counsellor. This one was better, I guess, but my requirement was that my wife take the lead, find the therapist, give all the backstory on the abuse, the insults, etc. She did all of that. I further insisted that she tell the complete truth on anything inappropriate that has ever happened with another guy, including at her friend's bachelorette party. This took a while. At first, she held to the same story. Then she started saying things like she was working on it with her therapist, working on how to tell me. She somehow didn't understand that a statement like that was awful for me to bear. Obviously, my mind went to all the worst places. I ended the separation in April with the idea that she was making progress. We discussed her physical abuse of me a lot in therapy. The abuse really peaked in late 2016 to 2018. She told me at that time she became very resentful of me. I'd gotten a promotion and she overall felt that everyone thought I was awesome, and she was jealous. Wow, what a nice feeling to have about your partner, by the way. At the same time, she got into excellent shape. She's always been very attractive, but at that time, my youngest was like 6 to 8 years old, and she still had some baby weight. She shredded that baby weight and looked incredible. I guess I'd gained some weight around that time, and she thought she didn't get enough attention or credit relative to me. I don't know. She says these things very matter-of-factly. She did a lot of CBT work and specific work for abusive partners. She owned it with the kids, and we have several good conversations. I thought we were turning a corner. Can you turn a corner from being jealous to the extent that you abuse physically your partner? I don't think you can, but let's carry on. Anyway, I've been frustrated by the lack of disclosure on her friend's bachelorette party. So, in June, I said I was leaving again. She actually handled this much more calmly and maturely. We still saw each other and even did date nights. We were even intimate. Not sure what the separation was. So she said she'd focus on what happened and was getting ready to share anything and everything with me. A couple of weeks ago, she asked me to join a session with her therapist. She wanted to do a therapeutic disclosure. I wanted to throw up. A therapeutic disclosure. Oh my goodness me. I go to the therapist's office and she proceeds to tell me how, at her friend's actual bachelorette, they went to some show. No strippers, just drinking and silliness. Then she says that her friend's work friends threw her a bachelorette at a hotel, and there were strippers there. In my wife's words, it was wild. Now, context for this in my prior post, I really don't care if she saw strippers. I care more about the double standards she applied and the lying, as she treated me like trash whenever friends of mine went to strip clubs for their bachelor parties. She said that she never touched any stripper, even though multiple approached her many times, at first in G-strings and eventually fully nude. Lovely. But that's all that happened. Who knows if it's true? I don't care anymore for reasons I'm about to get into. This is all in front of this therapist, by the way. So then she says that I asked if there was anything with any guy that she hasn't told me. If this wasn't long enough, brace yourselves. She had this other friend who was in the middle of a divorce in 2016. Friend was a fitness instructor at a gym. The friend met a retired professional athlete at the gym. I remember the friend being obsessed with this guy, all while technically still married. Well, my wife and this friend would go out and meet up with the retired athlete and his entourage. My wife would effectively play wingman for her friend, and one of the entourage took an interest in my wife. My wife claims nothing ever happened other than flirting, but that when they were out, this guy always had his arm around my wife, constantly groping her butt, often tried to kiss her, sent D-pics, bought her a thong bikini for her to send pics back to him. My wife said she never wanted it, but never fought it. She liked the attention and mostly wanted to support her friend. Her friend eventually had a falling out with the retired athlete who moved away. So that whole thing sucks. So I'm completely stunned. My wife is crying. The therapist is spewing some nonsense about my wife's bravery. What? Is that actually what therapists do, by the way? Bravery? Is that a joke? Sorry, what the... I mean, I know therapists aren't judgmental and they're doing things for the benefit of your future. But how is that brave to disclose the fact that you did this to your husband? Like, it's not brave. It's cowardly, the fact that you did it in the first place and then took, I don't know how many years to actually tell him. What? That is a joke. Let's carry on. She said she was brave because I requested disclosure of anything that might have been remotely inappropriate, and she has come through for me. What on earth? I leave. My wife follows. My phone starts blowing up. It's my wife's best friend who calls 10 times. She then starts texting me, swearing to me that what my wife is saying is true. There were strippers at bachelor party number 2, but my wife did nothing. Texts start pouring in from her other friends, confirming this story. It's the same thing again, isn't it? So she's gone to her friends saying, by the way, I'm about to disclose everything, but I'm going to need some backup here because I'm probably going to continue on with the lie. So if you could just message my husband afterwards saying, oh yeah, by the way, everything your wife said was true there, despite the fact that none of them were in the room with you and the therapist, that'd be great. Fantastic logic. Then I get a text from her friend who paired up with the athlete, and she confirms the story. My wife was only doing her a solid, taking one for the team. So great. Let's get a few more people involved in my life, my humiliation, the crumbling of my marriage. She could talk to all these other people about all of this, but not me. She needed a therapist there to talk to me about it. It just feels like one big manipulation. So anyway, I feel completely done. I still love my wife because I guess I'm just a simp. We're separated. I've spoken to a lawyer. My kids know and they're furious with me because I'm the one leaving. Be kind to your partners, people. Love them and respect them. I adored my partner and still do, but it wasn't enough. No, you can't end it like that, man. You can't. I mean, this is what people like OP's wife do to people like OP. Even despite the fact that it's so obvious to all of us right now that he has been abused for so many years and that he's done nothing wrong. In fact, it sounds like he's been an unbelievably good husband and dad. His self-esteem is at an all-time low because of this. And he's thinking, oh, if only I'd loved her more, if only I'd gotten in better shape, etc. Like, it's insane, the abuse. But yeah, what a sad story. The saddest thing about it is that I could definitely see, like, there's a world in which all of us fall into this. And because I imagine it starts pretty gradually and you think, okay, I didn't like that, but I'll allow it, that emotional abuse, that like that scream or whatever, then maybe it turns into like a push or something. You're like, oh, I didn't like that, but I'll allow it. You see what I'm saying? It's a slippery slope. And eventually you go from being at the top of it to the bottom of it. And then sometimes you're like, well, how have I got here? And you look up and you're like, wow, what has gone on? And I guess that is how this sort of thing normally works, and how, you know, people allow it to go on for so long because they don't realize how bad it is, and they're just used to it and they think it's normal, and their self-esteem is so low and they've been manipulated so much by people like OP's wife. But yeah, very scary. And I know as well, which is very sad, that a lot of you listening and watching this right now probably have been, or maybe you still are, in a similar position, which is terrible. But yeah, use the comment section below this video as a sort of therapy If anyone's going through something, drop it in the comments. Like OP got on Reddit, so much love and support. So yeah, get in the comments. I'll be down there as well. My dad sent me, a 15-year-old girl, to boarding school at a young age. Now he's upset that I don't like to spend more time with his family during the summers. He's threatening to not send me back to my school this fall. I want to go back. This was originally posted on August the 17th, 2017. Okay, so I've been attending boarding school since I was 10. I started the 5th grade at my boarding school. The reason why I started going so early is that my dad remarried. My mother unalived herself when I was a baby. He remarried my stepmom when I was 9. When she got pregnant with my brother, she insisted that I be sent to boarding school so that they could start afresh. I use air quotes here because I used to hear them talking about it when I still lived there. I actually heard the discussions they'd have at night about it when they thought I was sleeping. She said a lot of hurtful things then, about me potentially being like my mother and potentially being a bad influence on their future children. But I guess she convinced him because he gave in and they sent me away. So I went to boarding school. They had my brother and then my sister, and I only see them in the summers and some holidays. In fact, a lot of holidays I spend with my friends' families, which my father has always signed off on. This especially confuses me, considering his change of heart this summer. I mean, I've spent the last 4 Thanksgiving's holidays in other people's houses without comment. At first, I was extremely depressed. I was really attached to my father as a kid, and it took me a long time to deal with being sent away, especially when my siblings were born. I felt a lot of betrayal and resentment, but then I grew to deal with it. What really helped, and still helps, is that I have a wonderful group of friends at school, and the adults there are really supportive. My closest 2 friends have been there since I've been there. I feel like they're my family. Also, a lot of the kids I go to school with deal with what I'm dealing with in some form or the other, and this has given me a lot of perspective. Additionally, and I'm really grateful for this, and I understand that in a lot of ways I've been given an amazing opportunity and have nothing to complain about in this respect, I go to a really nice school. I love the grounds, I love my classes, I love the extracurriculars, I love my teachers, and I love my friends. The picture people paint of boarding school isn't the one that I experience. It's pretty easy for me to say that I prefer being at school 100 times more than I prefer being at my father and stepmom's home. When I'm in their home, I feel like an outsider. They do their thing and I do mine. It's especially awful though because I still get the sense that my stepmother doesn't want me around when I'm here. She barely acknowledges me, and I know she influences my brother and sister not to interact with me. I know because I took them to a theme park 2 weeks back, and they told me this after a full day of having fun with each other. So, and as much as I appreciate that I get to have the experience I do at school, I can't seem to distance myself from my distaste of my father and stepmom. So in order to avoid being disrespectful or coming off as rude, I just try to minimize the time I spend with them when I'm in their home for the summer. I don't have any friends here, so this means I go on hikes, runs, go to the movies, whatever I can just to be active or out and about without getting into trouble. Which brings me to the problem. My father kind of blindsided me yesterday. He sat down with me while I was eating breakfast, which never happens, before going on a hike, and he told me he's concerned that I haven't wanted to spend time with the family. I was confused because I haven't ever perceived this need from him, nor has there been any space for it. He works all year round and all day. My stepmother is always ferrying my brother and sister to something or is off with her friends. I just didn't even think they wanted that. He then said that he wants to keep me here for my final 2 years of high school and enroll me in the nearby private school so that I can be with the family. And I just panicked. I get stellar grades and I'm doing well at school. Every report he's gotten has been good. I expressed this to him, but I was so distraught at the idea of not going back that he insisted my distress was an indication of how unattached from the family I was. I know I could have handled it better, but I blew up at him after he said this. I told him he was the reason I wasn't attached to family, and that removing me from school would only remove me from the one place I had any real family. Now this really made him angry, and he left saying he was resolved to remove me. I don't know what to do. How can I convince him to let me go back? I feel like I'm a kid again. It's the same feeling all over again, and I'm so angry. Okay, before we get into the updates here, and as I said, there are 3 to get into. First of all, let's see some comments. Somebody said, I suspect that once your stepmother learns what your father has said, that she will convince him to change his mind. Interesting. Somebody else said, the stepmother might actually be a good last resort strategy here. If you try the letter writing or having a friend's parent or a teacher talk to your father and he doesn't change his mind, then you've got nothing to lose in trying to enlist your stepmother to convince him. For her own selfish reasons, it sounds like she would agree that you should go back to this school, and she's probably the person most likely to influence your father. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, it sounds like she was the one who influenced him in the first place, so yeah, it's a bit weird to say, can you convince my dad to keep sending me to boarding school? Because normally you wouldn't want that, I suppose, but yeah, in this situation, I'd agree. It's a pretty sensible idea. OP replied saying, oh God, I really hope so. Somebody else said, you need to be honest with him. He'll be shocked and deny it, but if you're honest, he will understand. You need to tell him that you heard when you were 10 the reason you were shipped to boarding school is so that his family could start afresh. At the time, you resented it, being displaced, but you found what you were missing at home, acceptance. You're now thriving at that school with friends who willingly and wantingly have you over for Thanksgiving. You don't feel the same at his house. You feel like an intruder, not a true member of the family. Even your brother and sister admitted that your stepmother instructed them to treat you this way. Then you drop the truth bombshell. You will always resent him for picking his new family over you, but you'll resent him even more if he displaces you from the only place where you felt welcome. This conversation will not be easy, so feel free to write it as a letter instead. You're 15, you don't get to call the shots, but you are old enough to demand your opinions be heard. Your father is an absentee parent. He needs to learn the truth. Oh, what a great comment, and yeah, all of that, phenomenal. OP replied saying, I really like the idea of writing a letter. I'm going to clear my head and get started on writing it so I can deliver it to him as soon as possible. I really appreciate this feedback. Thanks. I suppose then the other comments were in relation to potentially writing a letter and what to do if that didn't work. So yeah, I mean, that sounds reasonable to me. Start with the letter, and then if that doesn't work, and this just stepmom, I mean, she's done it before, I'm sure she'll do it again. Now finally, somebody asked if the reason the father wants OP closer to home at a local school may be for financial reasons, and OP said, I'm not sure. It doesn't appear as if there are money problems. I know that my tuition is very expensive, but based off the family's lifestyle, it seems like nothing. I don't know if I'm being naive with this assumption though. I don't want to be too detailed for the sake of anonymity, but I know he works in a field and for a company that makes what a lot of people consider problematic amounts of money. I don't know if anything has changed for him. It's just never a thing he's discussed with me, and I've never asked him about his money. Okay, so probably not the reason for it then. Sounds like it's very familial. Maybe your dad's regretting it after all these years. I mean, you'd hope so. Not saying there's anything wrong with sending your child to a boarding school, but it has to be for the right reasons. And those, the ones that he chose back in the day, were definitely not the right reasons. Okay, let's get into the first update. This was actually posted on the same day. Firstly, thank you so much for your concerns and kindness. It really helped me sit down and think more calmly about this situation. Secondly, I decided to write an email to my father, in which I apologized for my outburst, expressed my understanding that we should develop a better relationship, and my want for one as well. I don't know if I really want this, to be honest, but based on feedback, it seemed smart to include this, and my belief that pulling me out of my school would not result in that goal. I offered alternatives, like FaceTiming regularly and more consistent visits during the holidays, like Thanksgiving. I also suggested that maybe we should do something together during this holiday so that we could talk and catch up. We used to hike a lot together when I was a kid, and I suggested that we go on one together, like this weekend. I also explained that I feel I've been a responsible and productive student at the boarding school, pointing out that I head the diversity club, have provided peer tutoring each year since 8th grade, and have maintained a good GPA, and that disrupting my schooling might be counterproductive. I explained that my outburst was due to these details rather than my not wanting to be closer to him. I closed out saying I know he wants what's best for me. I hope this is true and I'll choose to believe it, and I want to work with him to make that happen. So, now I'm waiting for his reply. I'm pretty anxious because I honestly don't know how he will. I'm taking advice given to me here though and trying to make plans in my mind for any response. I've not told any of my friends yet because I know they'll tell their parents who may contact him, and I can't be sure how he'll react to that. If he refuses after my email, maybe I'll try to have an adult intervene. I'm still thinking it through. Anyway, thank you guys again. It's nice to know there are nice people all over. Right, let's get into the second update. He responded. This was posted on the same day. He said, OP, when we spoke, I told you I had made my decision. That stance has not changed, and I am disappointed that you have chosen to ignore my words. Do not forget that you are still a child under my care despite what you may feel. One day, you will see the wisdom in this and be thankful. I am currently out on business and will be back on Saturday. Until I return and I'm able to speak in person, I do not want to hear or read another word about this issue. Wow, that is a strong response. OP says, I want to contact my headmaster and dorm parent. I have good relationships with them. But now I really feel if they contact him, that will be the end of it. I think I effed this up. I shouldn't have sent that email. I should have waited. I don't know. My friends' parents are all pretty influential and well known in my dad and stepmom's social circle, and I'm worried it will humiliate my dad and stepmom if they find out about this issue or try to intervene. I feel so paralyzed. And then the next day, we got this final update. I'm going back to school. A lot has happened in a short period of time. I don't think I dealt with my father's email in the smartest way, but it worked. Advice telling me to speak to my stepmom really stuck with me. I felt so desperate that I spoke to her about the situation. It became very obvious very quickly that she had no clue that my father had wanted this. She immediately left the room after I explained the situation. I could hear her arguing with him, saying it was a deal breaker and that she wouldn't have it. He called me soon after she hung up and sounded so very angry. He said it was clear I had made up my mind and didn't want to be part of the family. He said that he'd wanted time to let my stepmother know and wishes I had trusted him. I didn't even know how to start explaining why I feel his view of my feelings is so wrong before he told me that since I didn't even want to try working with him, he's sending me back. I can't quite believe what I'm reading here. Let me just pick a couple of sentences out of that paragraph. He said, now you don't want to be part of the family anymore, and I don't understand that. What? You decided that for your own daughter all those years ago. Like, that's not her decision. Especially not one that she would make at the age of 10 when you sent her to boarding school. He also said that he wishes you had trusted him. What, like when you trusted him with your education and he sent you to a boarding school because his new wife wanted a fresh start with your new kids? Not really adding up. Anyway, he ended the call saying, I hope you can deal with the consequences of your choices. Yeah, flipped back on you, my friend. These are the consequences of your choices 5 years ago. I'm angry at him because I feel like so much of this is miscommunication on his part. But I'm happy more than anything because I get to go back. Thank God. I'm going to lay low, be as nice to everyone as possible, and try to ride this out until school starts, which is soon. I am so relieved. Ooh, there we go. I mean, that is fantastic news. I was concerned there, but how thick is your dad? Let's get into some comments before I give my final thoughts. Someone said, update 3 is freaking glorious. He throws you away like garbage, tries to tear you away from your friends you made as a coping mechanism after his abandonment. Then, when you suggest a reasonable compromise to meet his need for affection without hurting you, he tells you that your feelings don't matter, and he has the gall to act like you should have kept his secret from his wife. Out of what loyalty? Why would he think you'd have any reason to help him destroy everything happy in your life? What a self-absorbed frickin' moron. I hope you email him this comment of mine and some choice others from this thread. Don't, actually. That jerk needs a slap in the face with some perspective. I'm a grown adult, and I don't see how on earth you'd thank him later for what he tried to do. Exactly, absolutely ridiculous. And then the final comment, just saw update 3, someone said. Congrats, I'm glad this worked out. The things you know need to be shared someday though. The jerk needs to know that you know he's full of trash. Maybe wait until he doesn't have any control over your life though. Yeah, sound advice. So there we go, that is the end of that one. A very happy ending, which I'm delighted to see. But I do have to say, and I agree with all the comments here, this dad is so self-absorbed, so like selfish, and so like unable to see the world from anyone else's point of view. It's just a crazy thing to do in the first place. Your new wife says, I want a fresh start, so you then just almost discard your kid or any sort of feelings towards your daughter and say, you know what, yeah, you're right, we'll send her off to boarding school and she won't even come back for holidays. Yeah, you'll barely see her, don't worry, we'll just have our new family. Then 5 years later you go, actually kind of miss her a little bit. Is there any way you can come back into my life? No, obviously not. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this girl, I feel so bad for her. Gotta say, like, having read through all of that, she writes amazingly and she's shown pretty insane maturity. Not even just for her age, just in general. Like, I mean, I would react a lot worse to this at any age, and I'm sure a lot of you listening and watching would do as well. So fair play to her. Clearly, the boarding school that she's gone to has brought her up very well. So yeah, I'm not surprised you want to stay there, OP. But wow, crazy story. And yes, as the comments say, 3 more years, don't do anything crazy, and then you will be able to do whatever you want legally outside of whatever your father has planned for you. But there we go. That is going to do it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Drop me a comment down below, your thoughts on this story. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts. And what I'm going to start doing as well is chucking a comment from the previous episode on screen right here. One that I really liked. Maybe the top comment that's got a lot of upvotes. Or what do you call them on YouTube? Likes, I suppose. I'm such a Reddit man. But yeah, get a comment in the comments down below and maybe you'll be on screen. My husband is leaving me but won't give a reason. This was originally posted on April the 3rd, 2025. I don't really know the point of this post. No advice needed, just a space to say what happened before I start telling my children and family. Wow, these are the stories I love. When we get to hear about this anonymously before OP's actual close friends, family, kids, like, that's how you know it's tough. About 3 weeks ago, my husband and I had a long talk where he said he wasn't happy in our relationship. He didn't give me a specific reason, just that he wasn't happy. I asked him to put more effort in and see how we both feel after a holiday he was taking with his friends. Well, during the holiday, he rang me all day, every day, sent messages constantly, told me he loved me at the end of every conversation. It was so good having him be like that again. Today, after a few things happening that I wasn't happy about, I asked him how he was feeling, and he said he hasn't been happy for months and that he wanted to separate. I asked him to do couples therapy, but he said no. I asked if he was 100% sure this is what he wanted, and he said yes. The conversation was a couple of hours long, but that's the gist of it. He says he loves me, but he's not happy when he comes home. I said, you realize that you're not happy with dinner on the table every night, a clean house, and a family that love you? I do 100% of the housework and pay half the bills, by the way. We've been together for 17 years. This hurts so badly. How can he decide that he just doesn't want to be here anymore? We have 2 children. I asked him when he started feeling like this, and he said it was before September. So this is what, 7 months ago? I had no clue at all. But you know what was happening at that time? Well, my mother was dying of cancer, so I didn't pay as much attention to the relationship. I'm glad my mother didn't live to see this. She thought the world of him, and she was so sure he'd never do this. I just can't believe this is happening. I can't afford the house by myself, even with child support payments. I'll probably have to move in with my 70-year-old dad once my rent contract is up. He'll not be happy about me and 2 teenagers uprooting his life, but I know I can rely on him. I am so angry. Okay, before we get into the update here, first of all, there's a little bit more context revealed by OP in the comments. So she replied to one comment saying, yeah, I put more effort in while he was on holiday. We spoke constantly, and he said I love you in every conversation, as did I. When my mum died, my mental health was all over the place. She was sick for a long time, and it took me a while to get back to normal. But once I realized I'd been like that, I tried to give him more attention. His parents were on a long holiday with us. They stayed for 4 months, which I think must have strained the relationship too. Although I love them to bits and I was happy to have them in my house. One night, I picked my husband up from work and brought him to an Airbnb for the night, just to spend time together. That's putting effort in. right? I was looking through my WhatsApp chat with him, and we've exchanged I love you every day, several times a day for the past couple of weeks, including today. We've been intimate through all of this too. I was blindsided. Somebody else said, I can almost bet that he is cheating. And why are you paying half the bills and doing all the housework, by the way? Opie replied saying, he's not cheating, it's not his style. I asked him if he met someone else. He said no. I've never doubted his loyalty. Now, it's worth noting that this comment was downvoted, so clearly Redditors weren't sure about this, and I get it from OP's perspective. You know, you never want to think about that sort of thing, but it does seem like that could potentially be going on. I do need to say as well, though, it could also be the case that your husband just has fallen out of love with you, and he's trying his best by, you know, saying I love you every day, giving you loads of attention, being intimate, etc., to sort of fall back in love with you, but he's just realized it isn't working. That could explain it as well, but anyway, let's carry on. OP answered the other question, saying, I work fewer hours, usually 2 to 3 days a week. He works between 50 to 60 hours a week. It made sense for me to do the housework and cooking. Somebody else commented, you should consider working full-time. Maybe you can afford rent with a job, alimony, and child support. But OP said, well, there's no alimony where I am. I'll be looking at getting a better job. I work fewer hours in the winter, more in the summer, so my pay will go up a bit anyway. I hope I can make it work with child support. Somebody else commented, stop doing things for him. No laundry, dinner, etc. If he doesn't want the marriage, he shouldn't get the perks of the marriage. OP said, yeah, I'm not going to be doing any more of it. Someone else commented, he said he's unhappy, and your response was to tell him to put more effort in. Okay, do you hear how that sounds? Where do your efforts fit into this? How's your sex life? I noticed you didn't mention anything about that. If you had to guess, what part of your marriage is making him unhappy? I suppose this comment was left without seeing the previous comments from OP, or maybe it was before. I suppose this comment is partially alright. I mean, we know now about the sex life stuff and the intimacy, but yeah, it's a little bit weird when someone's like, I'm not happy, and then their partner says to them, well, put more effort in. But then again, it does sound like OP is putting in and has been putting in loads of effort in regards to their general partnership. Anyway, OP replied, I didn't mention our sex life because it was fine. We had sex last Friday and again on Sunday, but usually about twice a week for years. I worded it wrongly. I told him that we should both put more effort in. I also put more effort in. He hasn't been putting effort in this year at all. I asked him, how can anyone possibly be happy in a relationship that they don't put any effort into? Yeah, that's fair enough. I asked him out to lunch on Monday. He said he has no money, but let's go for coffee later. It didn't happen. I asked him out for lunch on Tuesday and said I'd pay. Again, he said no, and again said about going out for coffee, which again didn't happen. Well, there's the answer. Someone else said, until you guys stop living together, you need to try and find a job with longer hours ASAP, and he'll need to start doing half the household labor and looking after the kids fairly too, so you have the time to work as many hours as he gets to and get yourself financially ready to be independent. How old are the kids? Are you going to do 50-50 custody? Well, we know they're teenagers. They'll stay with me and visit him. We already touched on this a little. Rent prices where we live are crazy high. He will probably rent a room in a shared house, so not ideal for my kids. Wow. He also works about an hour's drive away, and he'll be looking to move closer to work so the kids won't see him during the week because of school. That is not great. Someone else finally commented, I think he was love bombing you during that trip. That is guilt. Is it possible he wasn't with whom he was saying he was? I wouldn't be surprised. OP replied, he was with who he said he was. There was a group of 5 men, and when we video chatted, I saw them and said, hi, etc. Ducks are in a row anyway, we never mixed finances, and when we last moved house, I took care of everything, so it's all in my name. The only thing I'll need from him is money. We don't have anything to split or anything like that. No home ownership. We have our own cars as well. Alright, now OP was on Reddit over the next couple of months before the update, commenting on sort of similar posts, like I'm going through the same sort of thing, and I feel bad, this is what I've done, etc. Reclaiming my house, the space, repainting. My husband left me out of nowhere. He said he wasn't happy in the relationship. It's on screen if you want to read it. But 4 months later, 4.5 months on from the original post, we got this update. First of all, OP linked the original post and said, even now, it's a hard read for me. Now, again, as you all know, I never skip ahead when reading these stories, so I'm sort of reacting to it live as you are reacting to it listening right now. That sentence alone pretty much confirms to me that he was cheating, because I reckon she is thinking or finding it such a hard read because maybe she's looking back and thinking, how could I be so naive? Anyway, let's get into it. So many people commented saying that he was cheating, and he was. I knew it. I mean, I don't want to sort of brag about being right about you getting cheated on, OP, but I don't know. Yeah. It's one of those horrible things where you look at it objectively and you think cheating is there's a very high chance of that happening. But from her perspective, she's like, no way, I've trusted this man my whole life. Like, we've been married for years, we've got 2 kids together, how could he? It's not like him. But yeah, clearly this is what happened. Anyway, let's carry on. The full story came out a couple of months after the separation. He'd been sleeping with someone from work. I just found out that he's living with her. A while ago, he asked me to forgive him, and he asked if he could come home. I said no. He hurt me way too much to be able to come home. So now they live together. I'm having some sort of feelings about this, but I'm actually much happier. My house is so peaceful. I love that I live with just my kids. The freedom is unreal. Without him, I can do what I want. There's no one to tell me to wash clothes, cook dinner, or expect sex. I'm 100% sure he treats his girlfriend better than how he treated me. Wow. I even got myself a boyfriend. It's early days, but he treats me unbelievably well. I am so hopeful for the future. Thanks for reading, and to those who gave me advice and told me he was cheating, you were right. I'm glad he's gone. Damn, short but sweet. That is brutal, but sounds like it's for the best. There's a lot more to unpack here though in the comments, so let's dive in. Somebody said, so is your divorce finalized yet? Assuming separation and divorce are not being interchangeably used by you here. OP said, no divorce yet, we are just separated. I'll divorce him when we're able to do a no-fault one after a couple of years. If he doesn't divorce me first, that is. I'm not bothered, to be honest. It's not something I'm going to stress about right now. Oh, what is a no-fault divorce? I mean, I'm pretty sure those don't exist in the UK. Is that to do with infidelity and adultery? Let me know in the comments if you know what that means, and I will be forever grateful for your help. Somebody else commented though, any debts he accrues will be half yours. That should be scary enough. You should divorce ASAP. Oh, interesting point. But OP said, I don't live in the States. It works differently here. Another commenter said, well, legally, this is a stupid idea. Sure, if I lived in the States, OP said. Thankfully, I don't, so legally it's the best way to get a cheap divorce. We didn't own a house or anything else together. Okay, that clears that up. Someone else said, I'm so glad you were able to keep your own place. I haven't been through it, so it's hard to understand the difficulties involved. I just see that having to move the kids is almost always mentioned as a barrier to leaving. What helped you get financially free? Well, we had separate finances anyway, through my own choice, as he's terrible with money. I get some benefits as I'm now a single mother. Along with my pay raise, I'm doing pretty well financially. Someone else asked, how are your children taking this though? Well, now that he's coming to see them and bringing them to his house, they're much better. It was them that told me about the girlfriend. I didn't give much of a reaction to the news. I just asked if they met her, which they didn't. So they're not upset with their father? Well, they don't know that he cheated. As far as they're aware, she's just a new girlfriend. I won't be telling them he cheated, although the truth always comes out eventually, and when they're older, I'm sure they'll figure it out and I'll tell them the full story. Yeah, that is 100% going to happen. Somebody else said, congrats on living a peaceful life. It sounds like the breakup was a blessing. Exactly what I said. It does seem as if OP truly wasn't actually that happy with her husband anyway, when she was talking about how he treated her, all the sort of requests and the demands that he put on her, eating, sex, cleaning, whatever. Like, it doesn't sound like he was really doing much at all. So yeah, I kind of agree with this comment. OP said, well, thanks. Definitely couldn't see it at the time, but I'm so much happier now. So there we go. Someone else asked, did he seriously want to come home while still sleeping with her, or was he hoping for reconciliation? I've got no idea. He said he missed me and regretted everything. He only told me that he'd slept with her several times, but that he wanted his family back. To be honest, I think he just wanted to go back to his easy life. It never would have worked. Does his girlfriend know he was cheating on you with her? Yep, she knows. What did his family, or your family, say about his cheating and moving in with her? Well, his family were disgusted with the cheating. Like myself, they couldn't believe it. I'm really close to his mum, but we avoid talking about him, so I don't know what they think. It was my kids that told me he was living with her. My family will never forgive him. And finally, someone said, well, I'm curious, how did your ex react when he found out that you moved on and you're dating another man? Well, when he asked to come home, I said no, how dare you try to upset my peace like this, and mentioned I'd been on a few dates. He said, quote, I didn't expect you to move on so fast, but I don't judge you. And that is the end of the post. What a line to end this on. I think it sums everything up so well. Phenomenal. I'm just going to read it again because it's so funny. I didn't expect you to move on so fast, but I don't judge you. Well, isn't that great? I mean, every single word of that is just brilliant. Phenomenal stuff. Like, honestly, I might just get it tattooed. Can I put this? How does this work? I don't know why I'm asking how my own arm works. If I got that tattooed right there, what's the quote again? I mean, that is just phenomenal. And I could read it every day and laugh. Would that fit if I took the watch off? I didn't expect you to move on so fast, but I don't judge you. Maybe we'd have to go like 2 lines, I reckon, down here. And for audio listeners, I am showing my absolutely massive left forearm off to the camera. If you're not watching, once again, you're missing out. But yeah, what else can I really say apart from drop your comments on this story down below? As you may have seen in the last episode, I'm showing 1 comment from each and every video on screen. So if you want to get your comments in and have a chance of being on the screen, then this was one of my favorite comments from the last episode. It's right here. Thanks for commenting. It's what it's all about, really. Your guys' interactions and your thoughts on the stories. Honestly, like, I read these stories and I think I've covered the general sort of feel of them pretty well and given my point of view. And then I'll see something in the comments that will make me think, wow, you guys are pretty intelligent. And you know a lot of things, probably more than me. Well, obviously more than me as a collective. But yeah, get your comments in. Let me know at what point here did you think maybe cheating was on the cards. She erased us from her wedding, so I'm erasing her from mine. This was originally posted on May the 3rd, 2025. When my brother got married, his bride, now my sister-in-law, had very specific expectations. She wanted everyone in the family to wear their wedding colours, and we all did. People flew in from out of state. Everyone made an effort to make her feel celebrated. The day before the wedding, she made some offhanded but clearly pointed remarks about how, quote, our side of the family never takes anything seriously, and she wasn't expecting us to take this seriously either. The comments made their rounds, and feelings were hurt before the wedding even began. But we still showed up, looked great, and participated. Fast forward to getting the wedding photos and video. Not a single photo of our side of the family was posted. Not one. In the entire 3-minute highlight reel, there were no faces from our family except a 3-second clip of my parents with the bride and groom. The rest of us, it's like we never existed. I texted her cordially and I asked if she could send me the pictures with just our siblings, since none of them had been posted. She responded that we never took those pictures. That is wild because I remember helping people adjust corsages for them. She doubled down on the gaslighting. I gave it 6 months and I asked again. She suddenly had no idea what I was talking about. Fine. Here is where the petty revenge comes in. I'm getting married in 8 days. I've been engaged for 6 months and planning this moment since she tried to erase us. I hired a great photographer and videographer. But what she doesn't know is that the videographer has a secret mission. Make it look like she's getting all the attention. Track her. Hover near her like she's the star of the show. She will feel so seen. And then, the final cut, she won't appear for even 1 second. Just like she made sure we didn't. I didn't even invite her originally. Word must have gotten out because she cornered me at a family dinner and said, unfortunately, I have to work the day before and after your wedding, but I should still be able to make it. I was so stunned, I just said, That's fine. The Airbnb is booked whether you're there or not. So, now she's coming. Ugh. To cope, I spelled her name wrong on the wedding invite on purpose. That was my first move. The video blackout will be my last. I mean, we talk about petty. Spelling someone's name wrong, that is up there. I'm not asking for advice, by the way. I'm not asking if it's too mean. It's not. It's exactly fair. I'm happy to finally talk about it freely. Wow, there we go. Now, don't worry, guys. We are going to get a post-wedding update. But before that, let's have a look in the comments down below and see what people were saying. Somebody said, actually, you can just instruct the photographer to take unglamorous photographs of her, like her eyes are closed or weird facial expressions, and just post that on social media. If she complains, you could just tell her, well, at least everyone's in my wedding photos. Although somebody replied to this, no shooter would risk their career for that, which I guess does make sense. OP said, I'm not asking him to do anything different other than just don't put her in the video. He's still taking amazing footage and does a phenomenal job. This won't hurt him, but I will ask his opinion if it would make you guys feel better. Someone else said, and I think this is semi-fair, she's living in your head rent-free. Just forgive her and keep it pushing. It's your wedding, about you and your partner celebrating your marriage. Or is it actually getting some weird revenge on your family member? Honestly, I love petty, but this kind of sucks. Which I suppose, as I said, is pretty fair because, you know, in doing this, are you not slightly taking away the point of the day from you and your partner? And yeah, are you going to be thinking about this as the wedding day is progressing rather than what you should be thinking about, just enjoying a wedding day? Who knows? Anyway, Opie replied, it's just a side quest. The rent-free is right, and it will stop now. Not me thinking that nobody would give a dang about this, and you guys are so good about calling me out where I need to heal. I'll work on that. Yeah, fair enough. Somebody else said, well, don't worry about it. You'll have enough to do at the wedding without tracking drama. Your response will change nothing about your broken sister-in-law. OP said, this is easily my favourite comment out of all 3,000 of them. I do have enough to do. I got it off my chest talking about it, but I'm ready to not think about it again. Thank you. Nothing I could do would change how she is as a person, and that actually has nothing to do with me, so I really ought to not make it as big of a deal. And finally, somebody said, and don't worry, there is an update coming. Update once you followed through. Also, congratulations on your marriage. Hopefully you guys can live happily without her. OP said, thank goodness we're in opposite ends of our state with hours in between. She's never on my mind and not involved in my life, but I was pretty hurt at her wedding. I guess enough to remember it 5 years later. She'll be at the wedding, not treated differently, and I won't be focused on her at all. This was just a side quest, not a main goal. I was a little bit dramatic last night while posting this. Yeah, I mean, you know what? As long as you said to the photographer, videographer, do your job with this little side quest, and you don't think about it a lot yourself during the day, I think it's absolutely fine. And it is very, very great and petty revenge. But if it is dominating your thinking even a little bit, then I don't think it's worth it. But anyway, 9 days later, we got the update that I can't wait to read. The wedding was absolutely beautiful, and I didn't have to think about this all day. We've been living on the love high that comes with the wedding and forgot about anything until YouTube remakes reminded me. Our videographer was given verbal instructions beforehand and made sure to know who my sister-in-law was. As our sneak peek clips have been given back to us, I've yet to see her in any of the footage. Now, our videographer told us they had over 200 gigabytes of raw footage, so she'll definitely be in some footage on a hard drive somewhere, but she definitely won't end up on any of our Instagram highlights. We'll see about the final video. I definitely didn't think this would blow up like it did. Originally, I only shared this with 3 girls in book club. Thank you all for coming on this petty revenge journey with me. Now, unfortunately, that is the end of this story for now. This was posted back in May 2025, but I don't know, that's only like 4 months or so ago, and you guys probably know how long these like wedding videos can take to fully make, and videographers and editors have other stuff to do in the meantime, and I'm sure there's a backlog and stuff. So we don't have the full finished wedding video yet. But one thing is for sure, this was incredibly petty and I really enjoyed it. People in the comments are saying, yeah, it just can take forever. This is incredibly petty, but maybe the fact that we don't actually have any sort of video yet or highlight or anything shows that this is a very legit story, and OP is just sort of waiting for that to come through before posting it on Reddit. Whether or not she decides to do that or not, I probably wouldn't recommend it, but as someone that wants to see it, I definitely recommend it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, editing takes time. Photographers, videographers are working on different things as well. But yeah, I'd rather wait. You know, if something was really expensive, you'd rather wait, have it be perfect, make sure that your sister-in-law is not involved with it and in it at all before getting the finished product. So sadly, we don't have it, but nonetheless, phenomenal story. Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think? Do you think that OP was sort of too het up on her sister-in-law and should have just let it go 5 years in the future? Did it potentially spoil her wedding day a little bit thinking about it? Or do you think, no, it was a side quest, this was great petty revenge, and her sister-in-law deserved it? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's get into our second story though. HOA insists my sister and I are not a single family household, and one of us should move out. We've lived here all our lives. This was originally posted on July the 6th, 2017. I am 21 and my sister is 19. We've lived in this house our entire lives. Our parents bought it 27 years ago. They joined the HOA about 15 years ago. My dad died 5 years ago. Mum died 6 months ago. We're now the owners of this house. We have been visited by the HOA multiple times. They are citing that we're not a single family home anymore since our mum has died. They've told us that according to the terms, only a single family can be resident in the homes, and being a single family is defined as a person or couple and their legal unmarried children. This meant that my mum could live with me and my sister, as it was a single family according to the definition, but me and my sister living here after our mum's death means that we are two families of single adults. They want one of us to move out so that this place becomes a single family home again. They have visited us 4 times now asking us to leave. They say they don't like to sue out of respect for our parents, but they will do that if we continue to refuse to comply by the community rules. Your mum died half a year ago and they've already visited you 4 times, threatening to sue when your parents have owned that house for 27 years. Where is the compassion? OP continues, can they kick us out of our own house, or one of us anyway? What should we expect and how can we fight this? The location here is in Washington State, and as you can probably guess, this was posted on r/legal advice. Right, let's see what the comments are saying before we get into the update, which was posted almost 3 months later. So, somebody said, do you have a copy of the HOA regs, and have you read through them to verify that what they're saying is actually true? OP said, I couldn't find a copy in our documents. I have asked them every time to send us a copy of the terms, and they always say they will, but nothing has come. Well, that seems pretty fishy. The same commenter followed up, but what do they say when they come to the door and you ask them? I'd be inclined to tell them to stop harassing you until they can provide you a copy so you can have your lawyer review it. OP said, well, they say they're here on behalf of the HOA to give us a friendly reminder that these are single family households and we are legally required to comply to the rules and things like that. But never have they given us anything in writing or given us the terms, despite us requesting a copy every single time. Should we demand that they stop harassing us next time they show up? Yeah, I think you definitely should. Also, this commenter is right. Like, the whole point of the HOA, right, and these terms that they're talking about, you've got to be able to actually physically see them or know they exist. Where are the regs? Because that is what they're basing this entire thing off. And if you've not seen them, then what are you supposed to do? Someone else suggested, if you want to be proactive, go to your county's recorder office and ask for help in this matter. Specifically, ask for help finding the HOA bylaws that your house is subject to. The HOA bylaws should be of record there. Many counties also allow you to access these records online as well. Someone else said, and this is a good suggestion, I think, start by attending the next HOA meeting, explain what is happening, and see if they can't reconsider. There's a chance the other board members don't know this is even happening, and it could put a stop to whoever is pursuing this on their behalf. That is a great point because, yeah, this does seem sort of backhanded, secretive, conniving, and I reckon, well, I don't know this, but it sounds to me like your parents have been sort of very respected members of the community of the HOA for decades. So if I was on this board and there was a chance I didn't know about this, and then, you know, my neighbour's daughters came in and said, this is what's going on, I'd be outraged. So yeah, definitely go to the next meeting. Great advice there. The person continues saying, if not, as others have said, remind them that no judge is likely to side with them, as their argument is ridiculous and callous. It definitely is callous. And you know what? It is ridiculous as well. Is that necessarily right that you're not a single family household? Surely you are still a single family household because you're two sisters. Like, I don't really care about the actual terminology of this because I think it's ridiculous anyway that they're threatening you with this, but you have to still be a single family household. Two families of single adults, but you're not two families because you're from the same family. Finally, somebody said, sounds like someone in your neighborhood wants to force you out so they can buy your house. I call BS on their part. That is exactly what I think as well. Anyway, 3 months later, as I said, we got this update. So I first confirmed that they are from the HOA, not just some people harassing us for the fun of it. We also got the CC and R of the HOA, which included a clause about single family and its weird definition. It included partners, children, grandchildren, parents, grandparents, step-parents, stepchildren, uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, children of uncles and aunts, children of nieces and nephews, but no siblings. It even had a clause that said co-owners are not allowed to live there unless they are a single family based on said definition. We also received a letter from them telling us of our violation and demanding us to comply. So, my sister and I went around the neighbourhood and gave copies of the terms and the letter we received to everyone and told them, imagine you died tomorrow. Do you want them to kick out your kids? Because they're doing it to us. They would do it to your kids as well. Help us stop them. We gathered signatures and had almost everyone contact the president and demand that this should stop. Within 2 weeks, we received a letter that says this has been a mistake with an apology. We learned that this HOA is actually horrible to everyone, not just us. So there are now people preparing to run for the HOA board to replace the current members. And they're promising to have a referendum about whether the HOA should be dissolved or not, because it really is doing nothing of substance except being a pain in the butt for everyone. Okay, great resolution to that story. Again, as someone that doesn't live in the States, I'm not super clued up on HOAs because they're not really a thing. In fact, they're not really a thing at all in the UK. My grandparents, I believe, live in an HOA or at least they're part of some sort of private road residence community that I think is run by an HOA. It must be. So maybe I should ask them or you guys in the comments down below. But I think this is, I don't know. There are quite a lot of stories, bad stories about HOAs on Reddit and them doing things like this and coming across as pretty manipulative and predatory. I think from speaking to my grandparents, their one is fine and they've been happy with it. And they keep things in pretty tight nick or good nick, I suppose, which is actually sort of what you want from an HOA. You don't want just residents being able to do whatever they want, etc. I remember a story from them. They said that someone had moved into the road and had these like quite garish pots outside or sort of figurines or statues or something like that. And they were asked to remove them because they were a little bit garish. But apart from that, nothing crazy. And I think that is legitimate. I know from my perspective, I am currently going through quite a lot of long lease contracts regarding the flat I'm trying to get. So it's not too dissimilar to this where, the regs are important and you need to go through word by word and see exactly what is going on there. But to have all those different sort of familial relations be considered fine, but not have two siblings living in a house, that is ridiculous. One thing's for sure, it definitely wasn't a mistake, as they said. They were just trying to take your house. And as the top comment down below said, I wonder what the HOA had in mind for an endgame here, because this looks suspiciously like playing stupid games and winning stupid prizes territory. And I have to agree with that. I followed and reported a drunk driver. Then I got a ticket for driving past curfew. This was originally posted on March the 10th, 2019. Last week, I was driving home from my friend's house when I noticed someone driving very erratically. They were swerving when there was nothing to avoid, and they couldn't stay in their lane. So I called the police and I followed them. The police caught up to us after a while and they pulled over the driver. It turns out that he was extremely drunk, and when they gave him the sobriety test, he failed them miserably. He was arrested, and the police asked me to write a statement and give them my information. I gave one of the cops my driver's license. I'm under 18, so he could copy my address. And he said that I wasn't allowed to be driving because it was past 11. I told him that I would have been home by 11, but that I noticed the drunk driver and I didn't want someone to get hurt, so I followed them. Plus, when I called them, they asked me to keep following the man even though it was technically past curfew. But the officer said that it didn't matter, even if me driving past curfew meant that World War III was prevented, that the law is the law, and that he had to give me a ticket because I broke curfew. He said he'd have to give me another ticket if I drove home myself, so I called my parents and they came and picked me up and drove the car I was driving home. This feels so wrong. I did a good thing and I'm getting punished for it. Am I really going to have to pay this ticket, or is there some way out? I'm thinking of calling the police station, asking them to reduce the fine, but at this point, I'm really anxious because I have to mail something back to the court in a few days, otherwise I'll get arrested, and I don't know what to do. I'm in Pennsylvania, if it matters. Wow, a curfew in Pennsylvania in 2019. If you're under 18, I didn't know about that. Now, as you guys can probably work out, this was posted to r/legal advice, and the people of Reddit gave OP some advice. Someone said, actually, it's not up to the police to reduce the fine. You have a court date. Show up and tell the judge what happened and let them decide your fate. OP replied, well, I actually don't have a court date yet. I have the ticket, which says that I have to pay the fine or plead not guilty. So you're saying I should plead not guilty and go to court? Yep, I would definitely plead not guilty and go to court. Also, see if you can get the 9/11 audio recording for your call, since it has the request from the dispatcher that you keep following the drunk driver, so you can play it for the judge. Now, somebody else left a pretty long comment about the justification defense, which has been summarized down into this. So basically what that user said is this: the justification defense is a legal principle where an individual admits to committing a criminal act but argues that their actions were necessary and therefore justified under the circumstances. Instead of denying the act, they claim it wasn't wrong. This defense is rooted in the idea that in certain situations, a person's conduct, while technically a crime, is socially acceptable or even desirable because it prevents a greater harm. Common examples include self-defense, exactly what I was thinking, where a person uses force to protect themselves from an imminent threat, or the necessity defense, where an individual breaks the law to avoid a more significant and unavoidable harm. If successful, the justification defense can lead to an acquittal as the court deems the defendant's actions to be non-criminal. Yeah, that sounds good to me, and it sounds like if you are charged with this and you're seen as guilty, I mean, that is just ridiculous. You've potentially saved lives. So let's get to the update that was posted 7 weeks later. OP says, I took the advice that I was given and I pled not guilty. Last week I went to court and here is what happened. I brought copies of my cell phone's call log, showing that I called 911 before curfew, as well as the same records from my carrier. I also got a copy of the drunk driver's criminal complaint with the help of the court clerk, and I printed out a copy of the justification law. The hearing started with the officer saying that I was pulled over on the side of the road, that he went to investigate why I was there, and that I voluntarily confessed to driving past curfew. He said that that was all he needed to prove in order to prove my guilt, and then he basically left it at that. Wow, that is disgusting. Then it was my turn to speak. I said that yeah, while I did drive past curfew, it was because I'd noticed an erratic driver and I was following him because I thought he was going to hurt someone. I felt that if I'd let the man go, he would kill somebody, and that 911 had told me to keep following him. I mean, why is this even a thing? 911 told you to keep following him. Surely all the calls are recorded. Like, it takes 10 seconds to listen back to that and say, okay, yeah, we told OP to do that. Therefore, they're not guilty. Ridiculous. Anyway, I gave my evidence to the judge and the police officer, and I said that I would have been home on time if not for the drunk driver. I argued that I had a reasonable belief that the man was very drunk and that the police are accusing the driver of having a .12 BAC. The judge asked the officer about the driver and he confirmed the BAC. Finally, I brought up the justification defense. I argued that driving past curfew was a summary offense and that drunk driving was at minimum a misdemeanor and at worst a first-degree felony if that man killed someone. I said that the law clearly provided a defense to my conduct because drunk driving was clearly the greater of the two evils, and because I drove in an otherwise safe manner. The judge agreed and found me not guilty. He said that I had proven my defense by a preponderance of the evidence and that I'd done the right thing. I'm going to get my collateral back in the mail in a few days, and my record is clean. There we go. Phenomenal stuff. And that right there is why Reddit can be unbelievable, because without OP going to Reddit, who knows what may have happened. Remember, at the end of their first post, they asked, so should I plead not guilty or should I just pay the fine because I'm getting anxious and I don't want to be arrested and I feel pressured? And I assume this is what happens a lot of the time to people that actually have done nothing wrong, but they're being hit by fines that are ridiculous but aren't their fault, etc., etc. Like, when you're under that sort of stress and pressure, it's very challenging, I think, to go like, no, that's not right. I'm going to do something about this, especially not knowing the law. So that is why going on Reddit, going on r/legal advice, and the people on there saying, well, this is what's going on, and then someone else, bringing into the mix this justification defense, which OP actually used at their own trial. That is brilliant. And yeah, well done to everyone on Reddit. Well done to you, OP, for posting and taking the advice given. Also, that cop is corrupt. Like, that just didn't happen at all. And I really do hope that he faced some consequences because of his actions there. Right, without further ado, let's get into the second story of this episode, which, as I mentioned in the intro, is way crazier even than the first. CEO demands I send him child prawn. This was originally posted on November the 7th, 2020. The company I work for owns a website open to the general public. Both our company and servers are located in California. Today, one of our users had uploaded a series of child prawn images. Per our SOPs, I've deactivated the user's account, made the images non-public, but still kept them on our servers to avoid destroying the evidence, and reported the incident to law enforcement online. No response yet, it's kinda late here. The final step was to send a notification to company management. Soon after that, I received an email from our CEO demanding a detailed incident report, including the images in question. I sent the report, but instead of sending the images, I wrote that I probably shouldn't be sending illegal stuff around. To which he promptly replied that this is not my concern, that as a CEO and owner, he has legal right to access any company information and I should just comply. It's not atypical for him to be a control freak, including demanding people to do something in the middle of the night, but at least I'm getting paid to handle urgent incidents around the clock. Yet he is usually not bothered with us grunts. The company has no in-house lawyer, so I can't consult them. From this mess, I have 3 questions. 1. Would it be illegal distribution of CP for me to send these images? 2. Would it be illegal possession of CP for him to receive those images? And 3. What should I do? Well, to me, the answer here is pretty obvious. Do not do anything until the police have told you what to do. Like, it's just way too risky, and your CEO is being extremely weird about this. Surely you immediately go, okay, we're handing this over to the police. Anyway, let's get into the comments. Somebody answered those 3 questions. In regards to question number 1, would it be illegal distribution of CP for me to send these images? Yes, absolutely. Tell him you're uncomfortable filing his request. If you really want to take a more tactful approach about it, tell him it's because you're not comfortable looking at the imagery. In regards to question number 2, would it be illegal possession of CP for him to receive those images? It's more of a grey area, but I'm sure a prosecutor could make that case. And number 3, what should I do? Well, do nothing further. Your obligation ended when you reported it to law enforcement. Yeah, exactly what I thought. They'll respond by issuing a subpoena to the company, which is a court order that will give them permission to come onto the property and image the server or servers in question. I'd also definitely start looking for another job, ASAP. because if he is a control freak, you may be retaliated against and fired. Wow, fired for not sending CP to your boss. Crazy way to go. OP replied saying, well, unfortunately, I've already seen the images while handling their removal. And in regards to the previous comment saying your obligation ended when you reported it to law enforcement, well, to the law maybe, but not to my employer. And in terms of looking for a new job, yeah, I do need to do it. What sucks though is that I've been working for them only for a few months. Well, better a few months than a few decades under this tyrant who may also be a nonce. Someone else said, well, why not just tell him which server or file location it's in? That's what I would do. I'd say, hey, I don't think we should be further distributing these files and exposing additional servers to being placed under subpoena, as that could disrupt business operations. As such, instead of sending, here is the exact location of the files so you can access them with law enforcement. As CEO, your account always has access to all server folders. OP replied though saying actually no, he doesn't have server access as he's not a techie and I guess he was never interested in it before. To get the files, he would have to SSH into one of the servers and run a few commands to retrieve the images from file storage. Now, this is where it gets interesting. OP has added an update saying the situation has gotten way creepier. I didn't send the images overnight. Instead, I forwarded the request to my boss, asking him for advice. In the morning, I saw the CEO's email to my boss that I was CC'd on, demanding the images, but not mentioning that they're child porn, and ranting about how the heck is he supposed to run the company if his own employees deny him business critical information. My boss replied something diplomatic like, I'll look into it, but why do you need them in the first place? The CEO replied that he needs to verify himself that it's really illegal content. What? Maybe because I'm sleep deprived, or because as a woman I'm not fond of men being creepy, but I can't help thinking that the only reason he needs these images is that he wants to see child porn. Since I handled pages overnight, I'm not expected back online. I work from home early in the morning, so I've not done anything and I'm just sitting here scared poopless that I'll either commit a crime if I comply or be fired if I don't. Or at least my working life in this company will turn into hell. Well, don't worry about the company right now. Like, if you were to lose your job, first of all, you would have crazy grounds to sue. Secondly, you'd just be losing a job. You wouldn't be going to prison for distributing child porn. Like, you got to think about that. Anyway, 5 days later, we got this update. Hi. I'd like to thank everybody who responded to my original questions. Since then, the situation was developing quickly and not always in a good direction. I was freaked out on Sunday to the point that I forgot which day it was and thought I was supposed to work. Eventually, my boss messaged me that the CEO has found someone to send him the, quote, suspected child porn. What? So he's been going to multiple people in the company saying, I need to see those images. That is so odd. On Monday, two things happened. First, I received a call from the cop who was assigned to investigate my report. We mostly discussed things unclear from the report, but at one point I mentioned the CEO's request and that it was eventually fulfilled. Later, I had a video call with HR where I was shown my Reddit post, asked if it was me, and before I even managed to open my mouth, I was fired for disclosing confidential information and insubordination, aka calling the CEO a control freak. Wow. The next day, the detective called back and thanked me for my help. He said that the CEO was known to them, so they just searched his house and discovered an F-ton of child porn, not just the images in question. Oh my word. The dude was presumably arrested because since then, from what my friends back at the company are saying, everything has ground to a halt. Mr. Big had set up so many internal processes to require his approval or participation that even accountants aren't sure if they'll be able to process the next payroll in time. What the heck? And that might be the end of a nice collective poisoned by a single jerk. As of myself, I'm about to post my CV on various job boards. It sucks to be unfairly fired, but it seems that soon there'll be no employer to sue over dismissal, so I'm not looking back. At least, if an interviewer asks me why I was fired, I can answer that our CEO was arrested for child porn possession and then everything quickly went to hell. I'm going to scramble my password, so no point in trying to contact me. Wow. There we go. Somebody said, well, that went from weird to holy frick pretty quickly. Good job, OP, and good luck in the job search. Goodness me. Yeah, pretty crazy story, that one, to end this episode. But maybe there's a moral in that if someone is asking to see child prawn, they might just be a nonce. Very ridiculous thing to say, but is it true? Yes. I just moved, and a neighbor is putting up flyers accusing me of being a child molester. I am not. So, I moved into a new neighborhood in August. Shortly after I moved in, flyers started appearing on utility poles, etc., alerting the residents that a child sexual predator has moved into the neighborhood. The flyer contains a cropped screenshot of the person they're mistaking me for's entry on the sex offender registry. We do share a name, but that's it. My name is not uncommon. I'm not Joe Smith, but I'm not Eusebius Cadmarinius either. Either way, the person posting these is definitely aware of the fact that it's not me, as they cropped the offender's mugshot out of the screenshot and replaced it with a picture from my LinkedIn profile. I've looked up Not Me's entry on the sex offender registry, and he's a fat white guy in his 60s. I am an average build mixed dude who looks black in my 30s. And to be clear, while there's no such thing as a minor sex crime, this guy is on the registry for forcible R-word of a child under 13, or something along those lines. I spoke to the police as soon as I found out about the flyers via my wife, which must have been a fun surprise for her to see when she was walking home from the train. They basically said, well, that sucks, but how do you expect us to find out who is putting them up? I was confronted by a neighbor yesterday. Luckily, I bookmarked Not Me's sex offender registry page on my phone, and the guy who confronted me was level-headed enough to immediately apologize. He knew who was putting the flyers up, and actually gave me the guy's name and described him as kind of a conspiracy nut. Great. The abundant misspellings and caps for emphasis on the flyer should have tipped me off. Anyway, I've got no interest in confronting this guy myself because there's a very low chance of the interaction ending in any manner that involves all of his teeth remaining in his head. I called the police again, and this time their take on it is more or less, well, being wrong isn't a crime, just keep taking the flyers down when you see them and try to ignore it. This was last night. Ignoring this isn't an option. I'm planning on going to the department in person today when I get back from work. Has a crime been committed here, or is my only remedy going to be civil court? I feel like this is way beyond the standard type of libel that might F with my ability to get a job or something, as there's a non-zero chance that this kind of BS could lead to a vigilante type trying something. I've got something of a hectic day at work, otherwise I would have gone in late to get my butt to the police department earlier, so I might not respond here right away, but if any more information or clarification is needed, I'll get to it as soon as I can. Thanks in advance for the help. Now, as you can probably imagine, this was posted originally to r/bestoflegaladvice and r/illegaladvice. So the comments got involved. This is what they had to say. Somebody said, a rare case of defamation per se, where no damages are needed since OP is falsely accused of being a criminal. Bonus points for the police either not knowing or not caring that NY Sex Offender Registration Act, section 168Q, makes misusing the sex offender registry a crime. So this isn't just civil court stuff. Yeah, I don't know what those police were on about. Surely there's a crime going on here, whether it's defamation or something else like this. You can't just randomly go publicly saying that someone who isn't a sex offender is a sex offender. That has to be illegal. The comment continues, not even going to pile on the fact that the person making the posters actually photoshopped OP's picture over a totally different person's sex offender poster, making it trivial to prove they knew this was a false accusation. Yeah, exactly. The only tricky part is proving who is putting the posters out though. Hearsay is not admissible in court, and the cops refused to investigate. Somebody else replied to this, quoting that last sentence, the only tricky part is proving who is putting the posters out, and that hearsay is not admissible in court, and the cops refused to investigate, saying, a warning about the consequences of misusing the sex offenders list posted on the police Facebook page with a direct reference to the present situation could be enough to stop it. At least it would alert neighborhoods as to what's going on. Yeah, that's very important. You can't just have the whole neighborhood, the whole village or city even, thinking that OP is a registered sex offender when they're not. That is so damaging. OP replied to this saying, "The guy who confronted me was incredibly conciliatory after I showed him the actual sex offender registry page. We exchanged contact information and he offered to help me clear things up. I didn't get specifics, but it seemed like his knowledge about who put the posters up was first-hand. So I'm going to reach out to him about speaking to the police or testifying, depending on how this goes." OP then added this sort of update in a comment down below, answering a lot more questions, but firstly giving some more context as to what happened next. "Hi, it's OP from the legal advice thread here. The hectic day at work I mentioned in that post was about 10 times worse than I expected, so I just got a chance to pull it up a few minutes ago and I found it locked. I'm a long-time lurker and I knew about this subreddit, so I was able to find this. I wanted to thank everyone for the great advice and reply to a few things that I saw. Reddit is making me wait roughly 10 minutes between posts, presumably because this is a brand new account, so I'm going to reply to a few things I saw on the original thread and a few people on this one in this top level comment to avoid the waiting game. Anyway, here we go. First off, a bunch of people mentioned potential difficulty with collecting a judgment if I go the civil route, and this dude doesn't own property. The north half of my block is all apartments, most of which are rentals. The south half, where I live, is all single family houses. I don't know where the person hanging the posters lives, but I don't care about making a buck off of this. My preference is, by far, to avoid any civil litigation in favour of handling this through the police if at all possible. But if I sue this guy, I don't care about collecting. To be blunt, my wife and I both have reasonably high paying jobs, so if I were to sue this guy, it would be more about extracting a pound of flesh or forcing him to deal with a judgment hanging over his head. I know it's petty and I'm not normally the vindictive type, but in this context, I'm perfectly content to be a jerk about it. OP then responded to this comment, which said, OP said he was mixed and appeared black. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. Crackpot conspiracy theories and bigotry are often correlated. Yeah, that is true. OP said, well, one of the first things my wife said about the situation was that she wouldn't be surprised if this is related to the fact that the only black guys she's seen on the block since moving in are me and a maintenance man in one of the buildings down the street. I try to avoid jumping right to assuming that negative interactions with other people are rooted in racism, but unfortunately, I'm proven wrong on that more often than I care to admit. And the fact that racism and conspiracy BS tend to go hand in hand, yeah. Somebody else said, and if OP's wife is of a different race, that usually adds a lot of animosity in a racist bigot's mind. OP said, well, my wife is actually white as the driven snow. She's Jewish, and if this is rooted in the standard brand of conspiracy whack job racism, it's a good thing this jerk doesn't know about it. Now, a lot of users said something along the lines of this, all legal avenues aside. If this were me, I'd be going around putting up my own posters, acknowledging that I'm aware of what's going on and making it very clear that it isn't me, which I think is a very good idea. But then again, you're sort of like playing the same game as the person that's doing this in the first place, and you don't want to have to be doing this, but anyway. OP replied saying, what, include my picture and the actual sex offender's pictures side by side, and a link to the registry if anyone actually cares to write it down and check for themselves, and finally a notice of intent to sue for defamation? Well, he's not wrong in thinking this could lead to some serious vigilante actions against him if it's not nipped in the bud as soon as possible. This is fantastic advice, and I will definitely be putting my own posters up. Thank you for suggesting it. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's a lot of effort, but again, like, if you don't do that, then what other option do you have, I suppose? The police aren't helping at all, and you have to let people know that that person isn't you. Okay, then 3 days later, we got this update. This will probably come as an anticlimactic update for some people, as I won't be pursuing any sort of legal remedies to the situation, either criminal or civil. I'm going to make up names this time around instead of describing my interactions with somebody to identify them. On Friday night, I got in touch with the guy who had confronted me and backed down when I showed him the actual sex offender registry page, Joe. Turns out he's on the co-op board in the Flyer Guys, Steve, building. Steve has a sister, Anne, who comes around his apartment pretty often. Joe ran into her on Friday afternoon and told her about the situation. He asked me if I'd be willing to grab a cup of coffee with the two of them before getting the police involved. I agreed to this and we met up on Sunday afternoon. So as it turns out, Fly Guy Steve is actually pretty sick. Well, beyond anything along the lines of the standard racist conspiracy theory type. In fact, racism isn't a part of it at all. He believed that I had ties to the whole Epstein situation, which to him would make it easy enough for me to change my appearance. Anne promised me that he's nothing like this when his meds are working, and apparently they've been less than effective of late. She's brought this up to someone involved in his treatment and they'd planned to address it, but she didn't realise just how bad things had become. I have a close family member who has an illness that has resulted in a few episodes of psychosis. He is one of the kindest, most thoughtful people I know 99% of the time. But it's been physically dangerous to be around him during his psychotic breaks, so I feel for them. Anyway, Steve is currently receiving inpatient treatment to get back on the right track, and he will be attending a partial hospitalization program after his release to make sure that his meds remain effective. Joe wrote a letter about the situation, a copy of which is going to be delivered to each resident of his building. He's also reached out to members of the co-op boards that he knows in a couple of other buildings on the block, and they have agreed to do the same. Anne's going to post copies in the same locations that Steve had been putting them up, and slide copies under the doors of the single family houses on my side of the block. She is genuinely incredibly apologetic, and I don't see any reason to push the issue with law enforcement or in court, provided that Steve is getting adequate treatment so something like this doesn't happen again. So yeah, all things considered, while this isn't necessarily a happy ending, I'm glad this guy's getting the help he needs and that there are people who are willing to step up and help with clearing my name. All in all, the resolution has made a greater impression on me than the issue that necessitated its development, and I feel like I picked a pretty good block to live on. Thanks again for all the advice, and apologies to anyone who had their want for justice killed. Okay, well, pretty decent ending, I suppose. Yeah, quite a heartwarming one. I really wasn't expecting this story to end in this fashion. I thought that there was a malicious side to this, but actually, yeah, psychosis is obviously a terrible thing, and it sounds like Steve has some pretty good people around him trying to help him out, and that the community as a whole is a very good one. I agree with OP on that. Fair play to OP, by the way, because think about it. Like, put yourself in that position. What would you do? Like, what would be going through your mind that whole time you're seeing this stuff up in a new neighborhood that you've just moved into, and you know this is like massively tarnishing any reputation that you're ever going to build, may affect your job, your family. Like, it's a pretty crazy situation to be in, but I've got to respect OP and sort of like be very impressed by him and how level and calm he seemed the entire time. It's just very impressive to not just completely lose your mind and just go crazy, especially when the police were helping him 0%. I hope things work out for both OP and also Steve, because yeah, I mean, it's one thing having someone putting up posters of you and accusing you of things, but at least you're sane. Psychosis sounds like a pretty horrible thing to have to deal with, not just for Steve, but for his family as well. But yeah, there we go. That is the story. Not the ending I expected, but one that I'm pretty satisfied with.